They were very loving people. They wanted to share all their love with as many children as they could.
You got these two individuals killed execution style.
It's shocking that someone would be shot right in front of their own kids in their own home.
What did you think when you heard that pow, 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 pow? I thought, oh dear God, no.
They had 16 cameras and they were all working.
You see them kicking the front door, back door at the same time.
It just doesn't make sense because they got what they wanted, so why kill them?
The camera really tells the tale.
It was almost silence when we're watching it and seeing it. We couldn't believe what we were watching.
Summer 2009, Pensacola, Florida. Bud and Melanie Billings are enjoying life with the big, loving family they've made for themselves.
They had a couple of their own children and they adopted many children. They just wanted to have a large family, whatever way they could swing it.
I believe they are the modern life Brady Bunch, honestly. They adopted a lot of special needs kids and they loved them a lot. If they could, they would adopt every child in the world.
Before the Billings became Pensacola's modern-day Brady Bunch, they were just Bud and Melanie.
Bud was a fixture in the used car business.
So Bud is this hard-charging businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He had many businesses. He had a lot of money, and he wanted a large family. The bigger, the better. Then he meets Melanie, who is the softer side of him.
Bud used to own a club in town. Melanie was a waitress there, and they madly fell in love. He eventually sold the club and got heavier in the used car business, which is where Bud really was making his money.
With Bud's career on the rise, the couple decide to marry in 1993.
Melanie was great. She kind of smoothed off the edges of Bud. He deeply loved her.
Bud and Melanie have 2 children apiece from previous marriages. But they're not done yet.
He wanted to take care of children, and it was like in his soul. So adoptions ensued. And Bud and Melanie actually ended up with 13 children.
Melanie developed a passion for helping these kids. And these kids were very much a part of their lives.
They just were very loving people, honestly. They just wanted to share all their love with as many children as they could.
You have money and you are adopting these special needs children, and that gains a lot of attention because of, it's a good deed, obviously, but also it's kind of unusual.
By 2009, the Billings have 9 children in their home, ranging in age from 4 to 11. Their 2 oldest children from previous marriages, Melanie's daughter Ashley and Bud's son Justin, are grown but live in the area. They decide to share the story of their big loving family with their community.
Our daily newspaper did a big profile on the Billings family. There were some wonderful pictures of Bud and Melanie and all this litter of kids, some laying and some in their laps, and all ages and sizes. And the whole story was just about how big their hearts were. This photo is the last photo of the family. And just, you can't look at that picture and not feel something for this family.
about 7 p.m. on July 9th, 2009. The Billings are home. Most of their children are in bed.
Bud is with one of their kids watching television. His wife is in a kitchen. It was one of those kitchens that had sort of a counter that she could look into the living room area. So she's cleaning dishes, they're watching TV.
Bud and Melanie Billings have no idea that these seemingly mundane chores will be their final moments together.
Their eldest daughter, Ashley, calls the house to see how the family's doing. It's like 7:30 at night. One of the children answers the phone, and the child is crying.
The Billings had a nurse that helped part-time at the home. Her name was April Spencer.
Worried that she can't get her parents to come to the phone, Ashley calls April and asks her to go to the Billings house and check on Bud and Melanie and their children.
Sheriff's Department, Debbie.
I live next door. The mother and father have been shot.
They've been shot?
Yes. Please come.
I'm trying to get somebody there. You said the mother and father both have been shot?
Yes. I gotta go over here with the children, but I don't know.
I don't want you to be in any danger, okay? I've got several officers on the way to you.
Hurry. I gotta go get the kids. There's kids in the house.
Home security video reveals a key clue to the Billings killers.
The first thing that comes to mind when you see that red van is we're going to be able to find that.
And find a tangled web of conspirators.
They're all in complete black. They look like ninjas.
She's very successful, and somehow she's involved with these ninja characters.
So now we're stuck with trying to figure out all these players and how to prove it.
And it doesn't make any sense. Why would you get yourself involved in this?
So you said the mother and father both have been shot?
July 9th, 2009. A frantic 911 call sends police rushing to the home of Bud and Melanie Billings in Pensacola, Florida.
We got dispatch telling us that we needed to respond to a double murder. At that time, we didn't know much about it. We didn't know if maybe it was a murder-suicide or what we had. I pull up and I see probably half of our patrol deputies on scene, lights everywhere.
It was sort of surreal because they're carrying babies and toddlers and all different type of ages outside. Just that eeriness of how many kids were in that house and trying to get them out.
There's 8 to 13 kids that we're dealing with. We learned right away the majority of them were nonverbal. It was difficult getting anything out of them. So after the kids were safe with a nanny, we started to walk through the crime scene. Right away you notice the door been kicked in, that it was forced open. You see some blood right there in the living room. And then to the far right is the bedroom, and you see Mr. and Miss Billings on the floor inside the bedroom.
Based on the initial forensics noted at the scene, it quickly becomes clear to detectives that this is not a murder-suicide.
You know, you got these 2 individuals killed almost execution style. When you see that, that's when we knew it's definitely, this is going to be different. I mean, you know right away that you're dealing with either robbery or home invasion, something in that nature.
When the Billings' daughter Ashley arrives at the scene, she points officers to something inside the house that could help them get some answers.
There were cameras all over the place. They had 16 cameras, and they were all working.
The reason they had the video system there was to keep an eye on all these special needs kids if they didn't hurt themselves.
Detectives rush the video equipment back to their tech team at headquarters, hopeful it will hold the answers to what happened in Bud and Melanie's final moments.
We had to actually pull the hard drive. It had to be pulled and brought back to the sheriff's office to be viewed.
Meanwhile, forensics teams continue through the night processing the bloody scene for physical evidence.
There wasn't a lot of evidence left by these killers because they really covered their tracks except for the shell casings. And then also, there were some shoe prints because one of the doors had been kicked in and they found some boot prints outside the house.
Investigators send the physical evidence for processing and return to the sheriff's office, where they are at last able to access the video from the Billings home security system.
When we finally start viewing the video, it's clear as day. You see this red van pull up. You see these people jump out.
You had 5 individuals moving across the yard. They're all in complete black shoes, shirts, and masks. So they look like ninjas.
It was almost silence when we're watching it. We couldn't believe what we were watching. Then you see them kick in the front door, back door at the same time. It's not something that we had ever seen.
The surveillance footage tells a stunning story about what happened inside the house.
You could tell it's obviously planned, military style, long guns, handguns.
You see Bud immediately puts his hands up.
And he's trying to talk to these killers that have come into his home with his kids and his wife.
Then you have 2 other masked men come in from down the hallway.
So the men that finally rush into the room, they get Bud and they zip tie him and they push him to the floor.
Within minutes of getting Bud on the floor, one of the guys shoots him twice, one in each leg, in the meaty part of the calf. Drag him, into the master bedroom, drag Melanie into the master bedroom.
Mr. Billings didn't have video in his bedroom, so we didn't see them being killed.
Investigators rewind the video again and again, scouring it for clues. And they spot something they didn't notice earlier.
We see there's a little boy in the living room. This little 6, 7, 8-year-old kid watching and seeing his family get killed. It was horrible.
The child, he was with his dad when the men broke into the house. He wasn't in the bedroom, but he actually saw his dad being shot. He saw his mom being dragged. The gang pretty much just ignored him, while this was all going on. And immediately, just kept doing what they were doing.
I've covered a lot of murders, and this one is the most shocking because it's basically caught on camera, memorializing the final moments of the Billings lives. And all the children are there. It's so unnerving, and it's just sad, but also it's something you can't unsee. And then after that, you can see the ninja invaders quickly leaving the house.
You see them getting into the van with an object. But it was hard to tell from the video what they were carrying out of the house.
This whole thing happened in less than 10 minutes.
So police are trying to figure out, is this just simply a home invasion and people that want money? Or why did this go down?
Home security video has captured chilling details of the murders of Bud and Melanie Billings in front of their children. Investigators believe the key to understanding what happened may lie in the unidentified object the killers are seen fleeing with on the blurry video.
In the early moments of the investigation, we were thinking that it was a robbery.
The video answers a lot of questions, but not the most important ones.
So you have this great video of showing exactly what happened, but you couldn't distinguish any type of facial features or anything like that. And we didn't know what they took.
Investigators continue trying to decipher the clues contained in the home security video. They need to know exactly what was taken from the Billings home, why, and most importantly, by whom. So they speak to those closest to Bud and Melanie, their oldest children, Justin and Ashley.
Typically in a homicide, they're going to go first to the people that are closest. So they're going to go find out where all the family members were, get their interviews done quickly.
We found out through Ashley. There was 2 different safes in the house. The small safe was in his bedroom in a bedroom closet. And there was another safe upstairs.
And one of those safes is now missing.
So when we put the whole thing together, you see him carrying what we know now is the small safe put into the red van, and you see everybody leaving. In that safe, Ashley had told us there's like birth certificates, adoption paperwork, stuff of that nature for all these kids. Some minor jewelry of her mom's, but not a lot.
So Ashley tells police, look, they got away with a safe, but the other safe that's in the house is the one with the cash.
There was a lot of money being made with the used car business.
So in the safe upstairs, there was like 100 to 200,000, something like that, worth of cash inside.
They took the wrong one.
They had no clue about the second safe, and I just think it was a little bit of ignorance.
Investigators still have no leads to the identities of the home invaders. They hope one comes from their most promising clue, the red van seen on the security video.
The first thing that comes to mind when you see that red van is, we're going to be able to find that.
We got that video of the red van put out on media. I mean, right away.
As police work on finding the killers, the Billings family is faced with another urgent task, taking care of the children who are now left orphaned. Ashley, Melanie's oldest daughter from her previous marriage, rises to the challenge.
She's taking care of all the kids.
That's a big responsibility, but those kids need someone that's close to them and that knows what they need.
Days pass with no new leads on the red van or the identity of its occupants. The evidence points to a robbery gone bad. But with a safe full of cash left behind, and the 2 brazen murders, detectives begin to wonder if something bigger is at play.
In the South, you don't speak ill of the dead until they're buried. So my thought was, okay, once we get the funerals over with, somebody's going to come forward. And sure enough, my theory turned out to be right. We started hearing that Bud was a great friend, but he never got the wrong side of a business deal. The stories that we were getting were the people that had used car lots with them. He would find a successful salesperson. He would help them finance the cars. But then when the sales start to fall off, he didn't hesitate to take the whole lot from them. And there were stories of him coming in the middle of the night, taking all the keys, moving all the cars in the lot, and the guy going back to work to a lot he thought he had with no cars.
Might Bud Billings have crossed the wrong man?
So there was a question whether this was just purely to burglarize the Billings, or was there some other motive behind this? Was it hit? Was there a revenge motive to this?
We appreciate you coming in.
Well, anything to help.
Bud's adult son, Justin, sometimes worked with his dad on his auto lots. As police interview him about the murders, he provides some intriguing details about his father's business dealings.
And when the police spoke to Justin, he gave them a name, a key to why this might have all gone down.
During the interview with Justin, he brings up Cab Tice. He said, hey, this is a guy you might want to look at. Him and my dad have had issues in the past, and you might want to check him out.
Cab Tice ran several car dealerships. He had a flair for liking Hawaiian shirts. He tanned.
Justin tells investigators that his father had a business dispute with Cab Tice, and Bud had accused Cab of stealing from him.
My dad was disappointed in him for stealing from him. I mean, he said if you needed money, you could have just asked. You didn't have to steal it from me. And Cab just stormed out.
So we start looking into Cab Tice. We wind up going out there and making contact with Cab. And he made it clear that he had no use for Mr. Billings. It kept just getting more interesting at every turn.
Two days after the murders of Bud and Melanie Billings, Bud's son Justin has given police the name of a potential suspect, Cab Tice.
The story was he and Bud had a falling out. Bud would finance his lot, and Cab would sell cars and not give Bud his share of the money. If anybody had something against Bud Billings, it was Cab Tice.
Mr. Billings felt like Cab owed him money. They were not friendly at all. It was clear. So when we started to talk to Mr. Tice, he was very frank.
In business, Bud Billings wouldn't give you a dime unless you got 29 cents back.
Said, hey, I don't like the guy. I have no use for him. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sad that he's gone.
Bud Billings' favorite statement was this, and as you interview people, they'll all confirm this. He'll say, you know what, over these years, I had so much cash that I could not spend it before I died. And when this whole thing happened, those words rang in my ear, I have more cash, and I think it was right.
Detectives think Cab Tice could have a motive to go after Bud. They press him to provide an alibi for the night of the murders, and he tells them he was working at a dealership an hour and a half outside of Pensacola that evening.
And we showed you a picture of this van right here, right?
Yes, sir. I've never seen that van.
You've never seen that van?
No, sir.
With no evidence that he committed any crime, police have no cause to hold Cab.
We let him go, letting him know that we had to follow up, checking his alibi and verify everything that he said.
Despite their initial suspicions, detectives are able to corroborate Cab's alibi. The case seems to be losing momentum. But then, investigators' strategy of asking for the public's help finding the red van seen at the Billings home finally pays off.
Somebody calls up and says, hey, I know this van. I once owned it and I sold it.
And I sold it to Patrick Gonzalez. Investigators go to the address of Mr. Gonzalez they had found in our computer database.
They drive by the house. Lo and behold, there's this van peeking out behind the trailer. They go, and it looks like the one that is in the video.
And it's just sitting there.
So police bring Patrick Gonzalez to the police station for questioning.
So he tells the investigator that the van doesn't run, hasn't moved in a while, and that it's his son's, Gonzalez Jr.'s.
So police have two suspects, and they both have the same name. One is Senior, one is Junior. Leonard Patrick Gonzalez Sr. and then Leonard Patrick Gonzalez Jr.
Detectives continue to press Patrick Gonzalez Sr. about the red van, when suddenly, he crumbles.
Patrick Gonzalez Sr. tells the police that, hey, I was just the driver. He spilled the beans on everything.
Okay. You pull in the driveway, what happens?
Everybody jumps in, doors kicking open. Raise on the ground.
Okay. All right.
And that's all I thought it would be.
He just basically spills his guts that it's his son, Patrick Jr., who masterminded the whole thing, and it's all his fault. I was just the getaway driver.
He said his son kind of brought him into this. A father and son kind of escapade. You know, instead of going fishing, we're going to go commit a robbery.
He talks about, being told about this being a drug dealer, that nobody was going to care if they robbed this guy. And he was shocked when he heard the gunshots go off in the house, and pretty much lays out the whole crime.
You said you were still in the van. What did you do next?
Got in the driver's seat.
Uh-huh. And then what happens after that?
We get down in the yard, everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden, right out.
Okay.
What'd you think when you heard that pow, 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 pow?
I liked it on myself. I thought, oh dear God, no.
Based on his confession, Patrick Gonzalez Sr. is charged with being an accomplice.
Senior tells us everything that happened, but he doesn't know all the names of the other guys. So now we're stuck with trying to figure out all these players and how to prove it.
Police have traced the red van used in the murders of Bud and Melanie Billings to Patrick Gonzalez Sr. He admits to being at the scene, but insists his son is the mastermind behind the deadly robbery.
So, as we started investigating Gonzalez Jr., we learned that him and Bud Billings were friends and knew each other.
They knew each other in the car business. Patrick Jr. would work at different car lots. They would do these big tent sales, and he'd be one of the army of salespeople that would do that.
Because of what they have on Patrick Jr. from his father, they bring him in for an interrogation.
Investigators do not immediately reveal what Patrick Gonzalez's father has told them.
We appreciate you coming here today.
Believe me, when I saw the pictures on the TV, I was like, damn, and I know the guy, so I'm thinking.
You know what guy?
The guy that this is about. So I was like,
You saw the picture of the van on TV?
Yeah.
Man, that's your van.
Excuse me?
That picture is the same van that's in your yard, right?
It's similar. Similar. Very similar to that van, but no, it's not. It can't be the same van. It's not the same van.
He denies everything, and he tells us his dad's mentally crazy. Don't listen to nothing he says.
Detectives believe Patrick Sr.'s story. Patrick Gonzalez Jr. is their prime suspect. But they have to find proof that he was involved.
We had enough probable cause to keep Senior. We didn't have enough probable cause to keep Junior, so then we got to keep following up. We got to get enough evidence to prove his dad's story.
That includes doing a deep dive into Patrick Jr.'s background.
Patrick Jr., he had spent some time in prison with a battery charge, an assault charge, and he had come out. He was very proficient in martial arts, had done some MMA fighting. Patrick had gone to Bud to get money to help with the studio that he had, the martial arts studio that he started, and Bud was not interested in investing in his business.
Investigators believe they have discovered a possible explanation for why the robbery turned so inexplicably deadly. Could Patrick Jr. have been so angry at Bud for not investing in his studio that he wanted him dead? Police execute a search warrant at Patrick Gonzalez Sr.'s property, where the red van was located.
The search warrant at Senior's house was incredibly huge. It helps tie things together. We wind up getting paint cans where they were trying to paint the vehicle, some burned clothes and stuff like that. We wind up getting a shoebox from Walmart.
So the shoebox is significant because the pattern on the bottom of those boots matched the pattern of the shoe prints found at the Billings house after the double murder.
Detectives head to Walmart and find surveillance footage matching the date and time on a receipt found with the shoeboxes. And on it, they see Patrick Jr. with a group of men police believe is the robbery crew.
Well, all of them are on the video at Walmart, where we see him buying clothing and shoes for the group that he had recruited.
Prosecutors feel they now have enough to arrest Patrick Gonzalez Jr. When they release the Walmart video to the public, tips help them identify and arrest the other 5 men.
They were tied to Gonzalez Jr. through a mechanic shop. So he winds up talking them into going into this house and robbing it because this guy's got tons and tons of money in his safe.
Police arrest Wayne Coldiron, Donnie Stallworth, Gary Sumner, Rakeem Florence, and Frederick Thornton. But pieces of the puzzle are still missing.
They had arrested a lot of people, but they didn't have the guns, they didn't have the safe.
Detectives continue interrogating their suspects, probing for leads to the guns and safe. And as they do, they hear about a mysterious woman who may be the key to that information.
Pamela Long-Wiggins, she's blonde, she's a real estate agent, very successful, has a lot of money, and somehow she's involved with these ninja characters.
We wind up finding out that she's rents to Gonzalez Jr., a home in Gulf Breeze, Florida. He would collect money for her if people were giving her a hard time, not paying up, kick them out of homes, stuff of that nature. So that was their
Police learned from their suspects that after the murders, Patrick Gonzalez Jr. met with Pamela. But then, she disappeared. Detectives managed to track Pamela down just in time.
She was trying to leave and wound up locating her in a big yacht or boat that they had in Orange Beach, Alabama. When we get Pamela Wiggins back to the sheriff's office, she doesn't want to speak with us without an attorney.
But then they get an unexpected visit from Pamela's husband, Hugh, looking to cut a deal for himself.
Hugh Wiggins was not on our radar at all. So we're like, this case just gets crazier and crazier. And he actually spills all the beans. He sells his wife under the bus.
The first question we have is, where is the safe?
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want me to take you to it?
I want you to tell me at this point.
Well, first of all, I don't know for a fact that it's there. I was just told that it was there.
Who told you?
Pam told me.
Hugh had cut an immunity deal with the state attorney's office. And he told them where the guns could be found, where the safe was. That was sort of a turning point in this investigation.
Faced with her husband's betrayal, Pamela admits to taking the guns and safe. She tells detectives she got her marching orders from Patrick Gonzalez Jr.
Okay. He said, if we do the job, won't be in trouble. And I let him talk me into it.
I didn't hear you.
And I let him talk me into doing this.
Pamela Wiggins is charged with accessory after the fact. The rest of the crew are charged with murder and armed home invasion. As investigators continue to interrogate them, they all point the finger at Patrick Gonzalez Jr. as the man who turned that night deadly.
Because he's the one who pulls the trigger.
They explained that when they come in the front door that it's Gonzalez Jr. right away. When the first shot goes out, they're shocked, and they tell us that Gonzalez Jr. shot them both while they were in the bedroom.
Gonzalez Jr. told this tale of how we're going to rob these drug dealers and this bad guy, and there's millions and millions of dollars.
It was only supposed to be a robbery, and they were pissed because that is not what was supposed to happen.
Prosecutors in Patrick Gonzalez Jr.'s murder case are preparing for what they know will be a closely watched trial. It's one of the most high-profile cases in Pensacola's history.
I think that what was a challenge in this case was that you want to make sure that no stone goes unturned to make sure we obtain justice. It's a death penalty case.
Leonard Patrick Gonzalez Jr.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gonzalez, you've been arrested on charges of homicide and home invasion robbery with a firearm.
In October 2010, the trial of Patrick Gonzalez Jr. for the murders of Bud and Melanie Billings begins. Prosecutors have plenty of evidence that he wanted the Billings money.
I think that Gonzalez Jr. believed that there was a treasure trove at that house.
But they can't explain why he wanted them dead.
So the big question that still hangs in the balance is, why were the Billings killed? It just doesn't make sense because they got what they wanted. They got a safe. So why kill the parents?
It was supposed to be just a simple robbery, people needing money. I really am not sure what was in Gonzalez's mind, but I think if you watch the video and surveillance video and you see it, as quickly as he shot him when he come in that door, I think, in my opinion, he had full intentions of killing him as soon as he come in that door. He comes in the door and shoots him right away.
Patrick Gonzalez won't provide any answers about his motive. He maintains his innocence and declines to testify. But the state has another powerful weapon. As part of a plea deal, 2 of the crew members, Rakeem Florence and Frederick Thornton, have agreed to testify to their involvement in the murders.
We walked Florence and Thornton through the video, and they would say, "That's me. That's this. This is this person." It became alive through them. So you brought almost a color commentary right there from the guys who were inside the house. I think it worked effectively. The video was the overwhelming piece of evidence that sealed the fate of all these folks. The video cannot be cross-examined. It puts the people where they're at. It is the crime.
On October 28, 2010, the jury finds Patrick Gonzalez Jr. guilty of murder and armed home invasion robbery.
A judge ultimately, after sentencing hearings, sentenced him to death.
The other members of the deadly crew all receive heavy prison sentences, ranging from 20 years to life. Both Patrick Gonzalez Sr. and Pamela Wiggins die behind bars.
As a human being, you just have to look at the senseless nature of it. Just absolutely senseless violence that has inexorably changed people's lives by virtue of just mere greed. Senseless greed. And that's the thing that really saddens you, because, you know, in many ways, all these people were drawn in for greed, and then a senseless double murder takes place. Families are torn apart. Both sides of the equation are forever changed by this.
Family was at the center of Bud and Melanie's life. Their daughter Ashley keeps their legacy alive by continuing to care for the children loved by the couple.
I just hope that one day that the kids grow up and they know that Melanie and Bud did love them.
These kids were so innocent. They were Christian kids. They were really made for each other.
The state park ranger goes over the beach and sees what looks to be 2 people in a sleeping bag. It was immediately clear that they were deceased. It didn't appear a murder-suicide. And absolutely nothing was missing. Who did Jason and Lindsay know? Where have they been? Who could they have ran into? Is there anyone that would want them dead?
He had frozen animals in his apartment. He was definitely kind of living on the fringes.
It was parents' worst nightmare.
That doesn't happen to normal people. That happens in stories and movies.
August 2004, El Dorado, California. Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen are beginning one of the most exciting times in their young lives. They're getting married in less than a month and enjoying a beautiful Northern California summer as they count down the days to their wedding.
They were unlike anybody I had ever met, and they were very warm to everyone. There was not a mean bone in their body. Jason was super, super friendly, just a very free spirit, did his own thing, had his own style. And Lindsay had the most peaceful personality I've ever met.
Lindsay grew up in Fresno, Ohio, in a loving family alongside her older sister, Carrie.
What a joy to have that sister for Carrie. She looked just like him, even as a baby. She was just a beautiful child, and she just completed our family.
I'm not sure she looked exactly like me. Once when she was doing a harvest party thing, she dressed up to look like me. At the time I had a mustache, and she penciled in a mustache and wore a suit and tie, and I felt very blessed and honored that she would do that. Very sweet kid.
They went to public school up to a certain grade, and then we homeschooled. Her social life was here at church.
Our church was kind of the center of not only our lives, but our girls as well. We really emphasized being a spiritual family, and that's exactly what we are. When she was a little girl, she told her mother and I that she'd like to be a missionary, and we were really pleased and proud of her for that.
After earning her high school diploma, in 2003, Lindsay is accepted to a Christian college in Bradley, West Virginia, 220 miles from her home in Ohio.
Her older sister went to Appalachian Bible College, and so that's where Lindsay decided to go.
She was really involved in the outdoor life ministry they had there.
The school's outdoor ministry combines nature activities like whitewater rafting with religious instruction.
She really was good at counseling young kids and leading them and showing them Christ.
During her first semester of college, Lindsay has an unexpected, life-changing moment when she meets 26-year-old Jason Allen.
He'd graduated and went back down to be a whitewater rafting guide, and that's when they got together.
Jason is from West Michigan and shares Lindsay's passion for spiritual outreach through the great outdoors.
He came from a great family, and he grew up in a wonderful home.
Jason told his parents when he was just a little guy that he felt called to be a missionary. And believe that God brought them together for that very purpose. These kids were so innocent, you know. They were Christian kids. They were really made for each other.
Just 5 months later, in February 2004, Jason approaches Lindsay's parents about taking his relationship with their daughter to the next level.
Jason came to talk to me while we were sitting in our living room. And then he said, I am so nervous. And so he actually asked for Lindsay's hand in marriage, and I said yes.
And they were just a puzzle piece that fit together.
Lindsay and Jason set a wedding date in September. They planned to spend the summer together working as counselors at a Christian adventure camp in Northern California.
During the day, they would take the kids whitewater rafting, rock climbing, and long hikes and swims that really challenged the kids.
The camp is located in Coloma, California. It's right on the South Fork of the American River. You can literally walk out of your tent and, maybe 200 yards down to the river bank. It's super peaceful and really beautiful.
On the 1st of June, 2004, Lindsay and Jason load their car for the drive from Ohio to California.
The last time we physically saw her, she was a little nervous. And I remember seeing her walk off, and it was kind of like some of these things you look back now on. It's almost like you had an inkling. It's really weird, I don't know. You know, the female intuition type thing.
When they arrived at camp, everyone's new, and I just remember seeing Jason and thinking, he's so tall. And Lindsay was pretty short, and so they were a little bit of a funny couple just because of the height difference.
Every Sunday, Jason and Lindsay would come out of the camp and find a payphone.
She'd call and talk to her mom for a while, and then she'd talk to me.
On Friday, August 13th, as their exhilarating summer begins to wind down, Lindsay and Jason plan one last adventure. They head out for a 2.5-hour road trip to San Francisco.
Everybody had the weekends off. That last week, their plans were to go out to see the Golden Gate Bridge and camp and get away because it was the last weekend and they wanted to spend some alone time together as a couple. Sunday early evening, you would be expected back to camp around 4 or 5 o'clock because that was when we prepped for the week.
That Sunday evening, the couple doesn't return to the camp.
They took work serious. So when they didn't show up, first it was like, this is weird. What's going on? But nobody jumped to any kind of crazy conclusions. They thought, oh, well, maybe they got stuck in traffic, or maybe their car broke down because they drove a really old car.
When Lindsay fails to make her weekly call home, her parents grow concerned.
We were nervous when the phone call didn't come because she never missed a Sunday.
When Monday rolled around, the concern was growing because we were thinking, okay, well, if their car did break down, I'm sure they would call us by now. But nobody knew where they were. And that's the moment where you go to that dark place of thinking the worst.
Monday, the camp called and said, do you know where Jason and Lindsay are?
We knew immediately something was wrong. The next day, we flew out and then the search began.
Investigators discover a window into Jason and Lindsay's final moments.
They both got big smiles on their face, just enjoying a tourist day out in the city, enjoying life.
Gifts from the beach, the pictures, and these writings.
And chase a possible killer who stays just out of their reach.
He was definitely living on the fringes, alternate lifestyle. He was somewhat savvy with weapons.
She had messaged him saying, maybe I should just go turn you in for that 50 grand reward. And why don't you go shoot some more people and try to get away with it?
It's been 3 days since anyone has seen Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen. Lindsay's worried parents fly from Ohio to California, where the couple were working as camp counselors.
We went directly to the sheriff's station and talked to the sheriff deputy.
We get missing persons cases all the time, and most of the time it could be anything. It could be something simple.
He said, maybe they went and got eloped and got married. I said, no, they wouldn't have done that. They're excited about this wedding. They're serious about this job. That just wouldn't have happened.
Deputies tagged the license plate of Lindsay's red car as missing in the DMV database. Kathy and Chris next head to the Rock and Water camp, where Lindsay and Jason's fellow counselors, wondering if the couple returned early and ran into some kind of trouble, have already started their own search in the area.
They're all outdoor adventure type people, so they knew the places where they could possibly have fallen and gotten hurt.
We searched night and day.
On Wednesday, August 18th, 5 days after Lindsay and Jason were last seen driving away from the camp, a park ranger is traveling along the coastline in Sonoma County, about 165 miles away.
He came upon a red car. It was off the side in a pullout, but they're facing the wrong direction. So this park ranger, he runs the license plate, and it immediately flagged like, hey, this is a missing persons case out of El Dorado County.
The car is parked along the highway above Fishhead Beach, a remote, picturesque location near the town of Jenner, 80 miles north of San Francisco.
It's just a beautiful place. It becomes steeper and steeper, cliffs, but gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous place.
The park ranger hikes down to the beach in search of the missing couple.
The state park ranger goes over the beach, and sure enough, he sees what looks to be 2 people in a sleeping bag down there. It was immediately clear that they were deceased.
The ranger alerts the sheriff's department, and deputies rush to the scene.
More deputies arrive, and they secure the scene.
Deputies discover that both young victims were shot once in the head. In backpacks next to the bodies, they find 2 driver's licenses, identifying the victims as Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen.
It wasn't immediately clear what exactly happened. There's no weapons here, so it didn't appear a murder-suicide. Absolutely nothing was missing, so it doesn't appear that it was a robbery. There was no sign of any type of sexual assault.
Investigators look for anything that might yield a DNA sample that could be traced to a suspect.
One of the things that was collected was this beer. So we get DNA off that, but we don't know if it's involved or not.
They used metal detectors to look for shell casings. They didn't have that at the scene. The killer collected the shell casings off the beach after the murders. So that's just a cold, calculated murder.
As the investigators continue to process the crime scene, news of the awful discovery quickly makes its way to the camp and Lindsay's parents.
They found their bodies on an isolated beach. What they thought was a safe place was parents' worst nightmare.
I remember it like it was yesterday. But the owner of the camp, he said, Jason and Lindsay were found, but they're dead. I remember thinking, this isn't true. This can't be true. That can't be my friends. That doesn't happen to normal people. That happens in stories and movies.
Back at the beach, detectives find a disposable camera in Jason's backpack. Hoping there might be photos containing clues to what happened, they send the film out to be developed. Several hours later, the photos come in. What detectives see deepens the mystery of Lindsay and Jason's final moments. Nothing in the pictures indicates that they were in trouble or feared for their lives.
As horrible as it is, how cool. Because there's photos of them You see the San Francisco skyline in the background. They both got big smiles on their face. Just enjoying a tourist day out in the city. Enjoying life.
Detectives soon arrive at the camp to meet with Lindsay's parents and offer what comfort they can.
It was really hard to fathom why in the world anybody would kill them. But some of the greatest detectives in the world from Sonoma County came to us. And we trusted them.
The investigators give Lindsay's parents the photos from the camera they found with Lindsay and Jason, along with notes the couple had written in a guest book at the beach trail entrance.
Gifts from the beach, the pictures, and these writings. There's a lot of gratitude when we see these pictures.
Lindsay wrote in the registry, "The sun is going down in the horizon, and all I see are the beams shining on the cliff face, and I know that God is awesome. I look around and I see His creation all around me."
How precious is that?
With no clues gleaned from the couple's photos and no ballistics evidence recovered from the beach, investigators know they face an uphill battle to determine what led to this double murder.
Early on, it became clear. These were awesome people. Had no enemies, no beef with anyone. There was no one that would want to hurt them.
There was no comforting information as to who did this, why did they do it, what was their motive, because it was so bizarre. They were beautiful people that didn't have enemies. So we were left to latch on to whatever our brains could come up with, and most of that stuff wasn't very good.
Sonoma County detectives investigating the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen can find no immediate explanation for why the couple was shot to death on an isolated beach, and nothing pointing to a suspect.
It's who did it? And you start looking into, okay, who did Jason and Lindsay know? Where have they been? Who could they have ran into? Do they have friends around here? Who could it be? Is there anyone that would want them dead?
Investigators hope to create a timeline of Lindsay and Jason's movements after they left the camp on August 13th, knowing that retracing the couple's steps might lead them to the answers they need.
At the time, tracking people was so more difficult back then than it is now. Jason and Lindsay didn't have cell phones. They had to check ATM, credit cards. Where did they go? Where did they stop?
A charge receipt informs detectives that the couple arrived at their first stop on the morning of Saturday, August 14th.
We know that they were in San Francisco, that they did a little bit of shopping. They used their credit card there and got a couple of small items.
They'd bought 2 tiny bottles of Tabasco on Fisherman's Wharf.
They were there having fun, tourists in San Francisco.
Detectives contact the store, but the owner doesn't remember Lindsay or Jason and doesn't have any security cameras.
They leave San Francisco, we believe, sometime early on Saturday.
Another charge receipt from later that afternoon shows that after leaving the city, Jason and Lindsay traveled around 60 miles north.
We know that they went to Bodega, which is a small town very near the coast.
We believe they stopped at a surf shop.
Detectives contact the surf shop owner. He tells them he does remember Lindsay and Jason.
By his account, they were inquiring kind of where to stay.
They had asked like where would be a good place for us to, spend the night and do some camping. And they were just, I think, generally steered toward the coast. After that, it's a little blurry, but we know that they ended up the coast on the beach.
As police try to put the pieces of Lindsay and Jason's journey together, word of the murders hits the media.
My husband and I had the news on, and all of a sudden it came on the TV, picture of Lindsay and Jason, and it was terrible, really. Really was very difficult.
A lot of people were troubled by this murder because they felt like it could happen to them, it could happen to their family, it could happen to anybody who's visiting, spending the night out at the coast.
It had a big impact on the community. People were really unnerved and frightened and just kind of generally freaked out that this had happened. Some people bought guns or borrowed guns from neighbors. There was a community meeting. The whole room was sort of pressure-filled. The sheriff's office had no suspects. We had a lot of news coverage following the murders. Ultimately, they got over 1,000 tips and calls.
One in particular catches the investigators' attention. On Saturday, August 21st, a woman calls the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department and urges them to look into a man with a criminal record who frequents the Jenner area.
Sean Gallen, he was a known person. He had fish and game violations.
One of his girlfriends, she came forward and said, hey, he's not right. He's doing weird things.
He's a kind of self-styled survivalist. He killed animals without a license. He used drugs heavily.
Although Sean Gallen only has minor charges on his police record, it's the best potential lead detectives have. They rush to his home in Guerneville, 20 minutes inland from the beach in Jenner.
They questioned him about those murders, and he denied any involvement in the Jenner murders.
He was adamant. Denied it. Wasn't him.
At that time, they searched his apartment. They found guns, ammunition, Kevlar vest, a spear.
We had our thoughts, our suspicions.
There was a hope that there would be some way to link him to the Jenner murders.
Two weeks after the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen, a tip leads police to a possible suspect, Sean Gallen. A search of his home turns up guns and several strange items.
He had frozen animals in his apartment. He was definitely kind of living on the fringes, alternate lifestyle. He was somewhat savvy with weapons, and he was, I would say it's fair to say, a bit antisocial.
But with no ballistics evidence recovered from the murder scene, Sean's guns cannot be connected to the murders, and nothing else found in his apartment ties him to the crime, despite investigators' suspicions. The case is back to square one. Devastating news for Lindsay's parents, who have remained in California seeking answers.
I think we kind of expected an arrest. We were there a couple weeks, and then when we came home, we had their memorial service to get ready for.
On September 4th, 2004, A week before Lindsay and Jason had been scheduled to be married, their friends and family gather at the Cutshall's hometown church.
Lindsay's already picked out her flowers for the wedding, and the florist in town, when she found out what had happened, she made up her bouquet in a vase and brought it over to her memorial service, and it was really special. Very special.
8 weeks after the murders, California authorities, desperate for new leads, offer a $50,000 reward for any information on Lindsay and Jason's deaths. It appears to reignite the case.
We got so many tips on this case to the point where there was a room, binders full, whole wall full of it. And these are hundreds of people coming forward saying they saw them. Whether they did or not, you could never confirm.
The tips range from suggestions that the couple stumbled onto a drug smuggling ring to them being victims of the notorious Zodiac killer. Detectives follow up on every one, but they all come up empty.
It's tough because it could be anything. People lie, people see things differently. You never know what you're getting, but you still have to look into every single one because you never know which one's going to be the tip that has some validity to it.
Weeks, then months, then years go by with no new developments, and yet detectives refuse to file the case away as unsolvable.
You want to work a case involving young kids like Jason and Lindsay, who were still in touch with their parents. You want to bring them some closure, any closure. You want them to have some answers. So it was something that kind of consumes you. Even though it could sometimes be referred to as a cold case, it was never a cold case. There was always a detective assigned to this case.
We probably went out yearly to talk to the detectives, and they always gave us hope, and they always told us we'd find that person.
We really grew to love the detectives and appreciate them, and just saw their passion and their desire to find the killer.
I admired Kathy and Chris so much because they didn't obsess about it. I'm sure at times when they were alone that they wondered, would this ever be solved?
After 5 years, Chris and Kathy Cutshall get a glimmer of hope that they will finally get some answers.
There was a man who had been a fugitive, the main suspect in a 1972 killing on an island near Vancouver or in British Columbia. It was a similar kind of killing, 2 young people on a beach who shot in the head.
After those murders, the suspect, Joseph Burgess, had vanished.
What happened in summer of 2009 was that this man turned up. He got in a shootout with sheriff's deputies in New Mexico and was killed in that shootout, along with the deputy that he shot.
Although the 2 homicides occurred 40 years apart, since Burgess had made his way to the U.S., detectives pursue a possible connection.
They had his DNA, and so we tested that DNA. And it didn't match with what we had.
That was a really frustrating moment for everybody involved who thought that perhaps they had gotten to the bottom of it.
Once again, the case threatens to go cold. Then, on Friday, March 24th, 2017, 13 years after Lindsay and Jason were murdered, a 911 call comes into the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, reporting a shooting. And it changes everything.
And I remember getting that call and just going, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for.
March 24th, 2017. The Sonoma County, California Sheriff's Office receives an urgent call about a shooting at the Gallen family home. When detectives arrive, they discover 36-year-old Seamus Gallen has been shot to death. The suspected killer is his brother Sean.
What occurred is Sean was at home, his mom was home, Seamus was home as well. Sean was angry at his brother, Seamus, for whatever reason. I don't think we'll ever truly know. He kept a rifle at the time in his vehicle, and he brought it upstairs and pulled the trigger, let out a volley of shots, hitting Seamus.
The suspect's name has a familiar ring to investigators. Sean Gallen was the first suspect in the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen 13 years earlier. Despite their suspicions, investigators could not find any evidence tying him to those murders. But there's plenty of evidence against him in this case.
There wasn't any good reason for it. And the day that he shot Seamus was just a normal day. Words were exchanged, and that was just all it took. Just an argument. He shot him point blank, and then he fled. They were able to track him down. There was a short chase. He was caught.
In my first interview with Sean, when he had killed Seamus, he confessed. It was clear. He described how he did it. It was a fully functional AR-15 style rifle. And he says he put it in full auto and pulled the trigger. I believe it was probably like 7 shots, the initial volley. The rifle stopped after that initial volley of shots. So he said he cleared it and then aimed at Seamus's neck and executed him right there. Once I got that out of Sean, then it was time to switch gears.
Now, Detective Horstman has the perfect opportunity to confront him about the 13-year-old murder.
So I asked him about the Jenner murders, and he denied it. He said it wasn't him. And I asked him, are you willing to take a polygraph? You know, clear your name. If this isn't you, this is the time. And he agreed to it. I remember when the detective was done with it, he met with me and the other detectives in our unit. And he said, "This is your guy." He had no doubt in his mind that Sean was lying, and it was him.
It's a stunning development. But polygraphs are not admissible as evidence in California courts. Sean's DNA does not match what was found at the beach, so the investigators know they need to find concrete evidence to prove his guilt.
We started brainstorming what we were going to do, and with the new crime, we could then write search warrants. One of the search warrants was for Facebook, and we delved into all that information going back years, private messages, group messages.
When detectives examine Sean's social media, they discover a trove of disturbing posts.
Sean Gallen had occult images on social media, posts on Satanism, that kind of thing.
They also uncover a private message with disturbing implications.
One of the private messages that we located was from one of his exes, and she had messaged him, "Maybe I should just go turn you in for that 50 grand reward, and why don't you go shoot some more people and try to get away with it?" And at the time, there was only one case here in Sonoma County that had a 50 grand reward, and that was this case. So that stood out. Like, this girl, he told her, she knows, she's threatening this is our guy.
Detectives immediately track down Sean's ex-girlfriend. But 13 years after the murders, she's a long way from California.
She was now in England. And I said, if we can get to England and talk with her, maybe we can get her on our side and see if she'll help us.
Less than 24 hours later, Detective Horseman is on a transatlantic flight.
We get to England and to the hotel room, and I'm going through my phone, and I see I got a voicemail. I hit play, and it's somebody from the Sonoma County Jail, one of the correctional deputies there, saying, hey, Sean Gallen just passed us a note saying he's ready to confess to 2 murders. It would have taken us too long to get back from London, so I wasn't there for the interview. It was one of those things you can't wait. Somebody's ready to confess. You don't want him to get cold feet. There was something inside him that tormented him, and he knew he had to finally be out with it.
In a small room inside the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, Sean Gallen begins giving investigators a detailed account of Lindsay and Jason's final moments and what he did to them on Fishhead Beach on August 14th, 2004.
He was looking for wild boar to hunt when he sees these people.
For whatever reason, he didn't like these 2 people camping on the beach, or maybe he thought of it as his beach. I don't know. But what he did say was that he had made a decision that he was going to kill them. And he said that he had to force himself to kill them. He had been hearing voices that were torturing him, that were tormenting him.
He finds sleeping on the beach what ends up being Jason and Lindsay.
"13 years after Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen were shot to death on an isolated California beach, Sean Gallen is finally confessing to the murders.
He said he approached them from the south. He's walking on the soft sand, so they had no idea he was there.
He said that he had shot Jason first, and that Lindsay had woken up, very briefly and made a sound of some sort, and then he had shot her and killed her.
He said that after that, he collected the casings. He claims to have hung around them for a little bit of time, and ultimately he leaves.
These victims never knew or met Sean Gallen. They hadn't done anything to him. They didn't have anything that he wanted. It's just utterly inexplicable. The only explanation that I can offer is that Sean Gallen just enjoys the act of killing. My take on it is that once he realized that he was completely busted for the murder of his brother, he understood that he was done. He was going to prison probably for life. When he confessed to the murders, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a false confession. He told them that he had put shell casings from the murder weapon into a soda can and tossed it into some blackberry bushes near what had been Sean Gallen's father's house.
Investigators head to the location, hoping the evidence still exists there.
They found this soda can from more than a decade before that had these shell casings that completely corroborated what he had told them. We also charged him with felon in possession of a firearm, possession of ammunition, charges that would put him in prison for life.
When he was arrested, all these things come flooding back and all these memories. It was a relief that everybody had been waiting for years, but also a shock. It's a really long time to have anyone not know why they died or what they died from. I think the hardest part was that it was a mindless crime, that it didn't have a reason, that it ended 2 people's lives who were phenomenal.
Finally, we knew it would happen. We were happy. We were sorry that another person had to be killed for this, but it was like, well, here it is. It all came together.
Ultimately, Sean did plead guilty to the murders of Jason and Lindsay.
He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms plus 94 years on top of that.
He will serve the rest of his life in prison.
I miss the spontaneity that they had, that they were up for anything at any time. Always excited about life.
We were very good friends, and I miss that. She had the best hugs. I miss her smile. She had a great smile, great outlook on life. Both Jason and Lindsay, they could teach me so much.
Knowing how happy they were is comforting, very comforting. And knowing that they fell asleep that night on the beach and they woke up in heaven.
They were happy together and loved each other and loved being together, and God took them home together.
Please help us bring our loved ones, my baby, home. There was no question about how or what or why. It was just, she's gone. She didn't walk away. She's not missing. Somebody has it.
There are some text messages between Alicia and a young man that raised some red flags with us. She had made arrangements to meet with him that night.
Like, my head is numb. I'm automatically thinking that he's the culprit. She said, "Can you please just come get me? I need you to come get me right now."
Spring 2013 in Willimantic, a former mill town in Connecticut. 20-year-old Alicia Wiley is preparing for her sophomore year finals at Eastern Connecticut State University, where she is thriving.
Alicia adapting to college life was great. My name is Shaharis Landell. I am Alicia's older sister. She loved being on her own. She didn't have anybody to answer to.
I mean, she enjoyed her freedom. She had a perfect balance of her academics and her campus life. My name is Sade Burke, and I'm a close friend of Alicia Wiley. She was someone who came off very sassy, and she was very fashionable. So you would think that someone like that is stuck up. But I remember her saying, "Hey, Sade, you're not going to say hi?" And that was the first time we ever had like a conversation because we never spoke before then.
Alicia was born on November 24th, 1992. And according to her mother, she was headstrong from the start.
Alicia was determined to come into this world. And when I was 8 months pregnant, Alicia finally decided she couldn't wait no more. She was so tiny, like she fit in the palm of my hand. We used to call her Lily because her sister really couldn't say Alicia. She will always say Alili.
The third daughter of single mother Karina Martin, Alicia forms a tight bond with Shaharez, her older sister.
Alicia was the type that would, if she saw me liking something, she would try it out. We fought over clothes because she, I don't want to give her a bad name, but she was a bit of a klepto at one point. We love fashion. We love dressing up. And that's something that we bonded on, glamming up. But we were there for each other. We were close.
Growing up, life isn't easy. But Karina instills in her daughters the drive to overcome adversity.
Education was so important because she was a single mom. Making sure that we were able to stand on our own was a huge thing for her. She was just like, you have to have an education. I didn't go to college, but you're going to go to college.
Alicia's drive was unstoppable. I was in awe of it.
Alicia's hard work pays off with a presidential scholarship to Eastern Connecticut State University. It covers tuition, room, and board.
We were ecstatic for her to be a young Black woman and see that people were recognizing her for the content of her character and her exceptional mind, you know. That's huge. That's huge.
But on the night of Saturday, April 20th, Alicia's best friend, Sade, is concerned when Alicia never shows to meet in her dorm room as they had planned.
We initially started texting, I want to say around 11. She's telling me that she's walking, she's coming to me, and she needs a drink. We were just going to hang out. I was waiting for like a text or a call or something that she was coming, and I got nothing. Then I called her twice, and I got no response to that either. But briefly for that moment, I let it go. I'm like, okay, next week it's gonna come, and she has to go to class. Monday comes, she's not there. Not in class, anything. So now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really freaking out.
With her anxiety mounting, Sade decides to seek help the next morning.
I approach our professor and I ask him, have you seen Alicia? He's just like, no. And he was just like, why? And I was like, well, I haven't seen her all weekend. And then he side-eyed me and he was like, is that normal behavior for her? And I was like, no. He was like, okay, well, I'm going to check to see if she's attended her other classes and then I'll get back to you. Then later that day, I get a call from campus police letting me know that she was nowhere to be found and she's been missing for a few days. My heart dropped because that's when I realized that this was no longer like me just being in my head. This was for real.
Later that day, campus police reach out to authorities in Alicia's hometown of New Haven for assistance.
A knock came on the door and my stepdad said, Corey, there's a policeman here asking about Alicia. And I said, she's at school. Why are you looking for Alicia? And he says, well, I was told to do a well check. I was like, a well check? For what? She's up at school getting ready for finals. Why? And that's when they told me that Alicia had been missing.
With Alicia now missing for 3 days, campus security contacts the Connecticut State Police. The case is assigned to lead investigator Sergeant Forrest Ruddy.
I was contacted to assist the University Police with their missing person investigation. So a detective sergeant, a couple other detectives responded to the campus. They were assigned to interview her roommates, her classmates, her professors in the classes that she was in. Everyone was saying the same thing. We haven't heard from her in days. So that was a little more alarming, and I got more detectives on the scene.
Working with university police, investigators attempt to track Alicia's movements and uncover their first clue.
I'm Joseph T. Corradino, State's Attorney for the Judicial District of Fairfield. The school was able to access its various data systems, and they were able to document the last time that she was on campus.
The footage in question shows Alicia on the morning of Saturday, April 20th.
We have her on surveillance cameras in the lobby of Ockham Hall, and then leaving the building. We were able to recover Alicia walking out of Ockham Hall. And then waiting outside, and a black Nissan Altima shows up. And Alicia gets in there. That raised some red flags with us.
Shocking secrets from the past.
I didn't want her to think, who else can I trust? So I kept it. What she told me, I kept.
Heartbreaking regrets.
And I was just crying. That destroyed me because it made it feel like she was never coming back.
And the quest to decipher Alicia's final moments.
She said, I want you to know this isn't the first time this happened. And I was like, what do you mean?
The story changed, so we want to gain as much information as we can.
Connecticut authorities are investigating the disappearance of 20-year-old college student Alicia Wiley. When investigators inform Alicia Wiley's mother that her daughter has been missing from campus for 3 days, she's distraught.
It took me about 45 minutes to convince the officer that Alicia, she's not missing. She didn't walk away from her life. She's not missing. She's not missing. Somebody has her.
The last time Alicia was seen on campus was on Saturday, when surveillance footage captures her getting into an unidentified black car.
It was obvious to us that she knew who it was. At that point in the investigation, it looked like, okay, she was a willing participant in that vehicle. University Police Department detectives had been speaking with the family members. They were in contact with the last person known to be seen with Alicia.
The family reveals that the person in question is her boyfriend, Jermaine Richards, and that the relationship began in high school.
When she was a junior in high school, she was like, hey, I started talking to this guy. That guy was Jermaine. Alicia told me that she was walking home from school one day, and he seen her and approached her in a car. That's how they met.
She just said that she really loved him and she did want to start a family. She described him as like the dream guy.
After reviewing the footage and confirming that the vehicle belongs to Richards, investigators make arrangements to question him.
Detectives had been speaking with family members, and they related to us that they were in contact with the boyfriend, Jermaine, and they asked him to respond up to the police department to assist us in our investigation, since he was the last person known to be seen with Alicia. We're looking for help here. We want to gain as much information as we can.
Richards tells police that after picking up his girlfriend on campus a little after noon on Saturday, he then drove an hour and a half southwest to Bridgeport, where they spent an uneventful day at his mother's house.
Then he told the police he had dropped her off on campus on that Saturday, sometime shortly before 11 p.m. He left her at the Dairy Queen, which is about 2 blocks from the main gate of the campus, and he came back to Bridgeport.
According to Jermaine, he hasn't heard from Alicia since dropping her off.
So at the time we spoke initially with Jermaine, we looked into his background. He didn't really have that much of a criminal history. The family also had mentioned that he was in the nursing field, healthcare assistant, at home care and things like that. In interviewing his mother, she pretty much said that she had seen Alicia and Jermaine at her house in Bridgeport the night before. They were getting along, didn't seem like anything was wrong, so she said there was no issues. We looked into his black Altima to see if there's any evidence in there, any signs of a fight or anything broken inside the vehicle. There was nothing.
To track the couple's movements on Saturday, investigators subpoena their cell phone records. While they must wait for Alicia's, they immediately gain access to Jermaine's.
Cell site data is limited. We don't get an exact GPS location. We simply get a range in which the phone may have been. After he left her at the Dairy Queen, he gets on the telephone. His cell phone was on the towers up in Willimantic at 11 p.m. And then there was a 45-minute phone conversation with another friend. He's on the telephone almost all the way back to Bridgeport. So his phone is making contact with cell towers over the entire distance from Willimantic back to Bridgeport. That's a distance of about 75 miles.
It seems Richard's story checks out.
Jermaine Richards said he had dropped her off on campus. So the police set up a cordon around the campus to interview any person that came into that cordon and ask them if they had been out the previous Saturday night. Over 300 people were interviewed.
But no one claims to have seen her. Investigators broaden their search from the college campus and find something disturbing nearby.
My name is Daniel Tepfer. I'm a reporter for the Connecticut Post newspaper. Just kind of an odd population in Willimantic. Just down the street from the school, there was kind of a rooming house, drug addicts and people with psychological problems. So there was always that question about maybe somebody in that town could have done something to Alicia.
If, in fact, he did drop her off there, some random sex offender could have grabbed onto her, thrown her in a car, and then taken off.
In the days after Alicia Wiley goes missing, investigators are looking into the possibility that she was abducted after her boyfriend claims he dropped her off on Saturday night near campus.
If, in fact, he did drop her off there, some random sex offender could have grabbed onto her, thrown her in a car, and then taken off.
After searching on campus, investigators looked for possible suspects in the neighborhoods nearby.
We checked with our sex offender registry, the local PDs, every police department in that area. We spoke to all of them. Everyone was alibied out.
Then, investigators get their hands on Alicia's cell records and begin studying the data.
Working with the cell phone towers in triangulation where the phones would plot, and kind of gave us almost like a breadcrumb of where her activities were. In addition to those locations, we also had text messages back and forth with Alicia and her friends and her family. There was text messages from Alicia's phone and it's bouncing off the towers that are right around the university.
Based on the timestamp of her texts, investigators discovered that Alicia was communicating with Sade while she waited for Jermaine to pick her up. So for the first time, state police seek out Alicia's best friend. A week after alerting campus police that Alicia was missing, Sade is anxious and confused and in a state of denial.
A lot of it was happening when I was still trying to attend classes, or when I was locked up in my room, trying to process it all. But I didn't realize it was serious until I got pulled out of class to speak to a detective. And I was just well, you're pulling me out of class. This is serious. So I'm just my head is just nowhere at that point. My head is numb. I don't know what to think anymore.
Detectives ask Sade about the text messages she and Alicia exchanged on the day she went missing, which started that Saturday around noon.
It was normal for me and Alicia to text all day, every day, because we always had things to talk about. So I was letting her know how everything was going, and we were just kind of cracking jokes.
Alicia then reveals something unexpected.
Then randomly, she said that she's over the relationship and she wants to be done with Jermaine. The text wasn't odd to me, because I feel I knew Alicia was going to break up with Jermaine soon. I just didn't know when. What caught my surprise was not the fact that she actually was breaking up with him, just that she did it sooner than I expected.
According to Sade, once Alicia started college, her relationship with her long-term high school boyfriend began to change.
As me and her became closer, and the more we hung out and the more I started to bring her around the friends I was around, she started to meet other guys. And of course, they're more studious. They're upstanding guys. You know what I mean? They're in college. Jermaine is somewhere else. So I feel that opened her eyes a little bit more to the world. There's more to life than just Jermaine. I feel she started to have a self-realization moment. And over time, I noticed that she was more open to dating or talking to other guys. And that's what let me know, okay, Jermaine's going to be out of the picture pretty soon. I think she just said she was just over it. Her patience is just through with him.
Sade tells police that she didn't hear from her friend again until later on that night, around 11 p.m.
She's telling me that she's at Dairy Queen and she's walking, she's coming to me. And the text said, "It's over, I'm coming over. I need a drink." And I just replied with okay.
Anxious to hear about the breakup, Sade anticipates Alicia's arrival, but she never shows.
It's weird that she didn't reach back out to me. She said she was coming and never showed up. Something's not right. Something's off.
The 11:03 p.m. text to Sade is the last communication from Alicia's phone.
Alicia's phone is bouncing off the towers that are right around the university and the town of Willimantic. But then the phone stops and nowhere to be found.
However, her phone offers another clue, a series of texts to an unknown number that begin that Saturday at 4:43 p.m.
There was a former boyfriend that she was speaking with. She had made arrangements to meet with him that night.
Investigators in the Alicia Wiley disappearance case discover that while she was spending the weekend with her boyfriend, Jermaine, she was communicating with another man.
There are some text messages later in the afternoon between Lily and a young man that she had known before becoming involved with Jermaine. And in that set of texts, she suggests that perhaps he could come over that night and asks what time he's getting off work.
And they went back to talk to him just to see if he had any information on where she could be.
The young man tells police that Alicia's text messages stopped late Saturday afternoon, and he has not heard from her since.
He showed some real concern for Alicia's whereabouts. I mean, he's really seemed that he really wanted to know and wanted to help.
He gave us a story, we followed through with it, and his story checked out. That young man worked at a restaurant in New Haven until 11 o'clock at night. According to Jermaine Richards, at 11 o'clock at night, he had just dropped Lily off back in Willimantic. So, in effect, Jermaine himself rules that young man out as a suspect.
When investigators learned that Alicia had reached out to an ex, the same weekend she had planned to break up with Jermaine, detectives re-examined the relationship with her long-term boyfriend.
Well, that was very concerning to us. We're looking for help here. We want to gain as much information as we can.
But when detectives try to find out more details on their relationship, they're surprised by what they find.
Her friends didn't really know much about him. Occasionally she would let slip some little thing, but he was her big secret. A lot of her friends really didn't understand why. It definitely was something that she kept under wraps.
She was in another world when he came around. It was like nobody else existed. She was in love with him.
To further probe the details of Alicia and Jermaine's relationship, detectives speak with Alicia's closest ally and confidant, her sister, Shaharaz. And she reveals an alarming incident that occurred a month before Alicia disappeared.
She called me and she said, "Can you please just come get me? Come get me right now. I need you to come get me right now." And she's like whispering. And she was like, "I'm in one of the bathrooms. I'm at one of his clients' house with Jermaine. And I don't want to be here." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting up right now." At the time, the guy that I was with, I woke him up and I was like, "We have to go get my sister right now."
Sometime after midnight, the couple drove 45 minutes to pick up Alicia.
Lily came out of the house. She appeared to her sister and brother-in-law to be very nervous, very upset, and very fearful. They took her home that night.
And I'm like, "What happened?" And she's like, "I just was trying to talk to him and he just got so mad and he put me on the bed and he was like smothering me. He was like choking me and like he started fighting me and I don't even know why." She said, "I want you to know this isn't the first time this happened." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "This isn't the first time that he's like put his hands on me." And I said, "Well, you don't have to tell me everything. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm here for you." And she just got up and walked back into the living room. And we went to sleep.
Despite the encounter, Alicia had difficulty breaking the alleged cycle of abuse.
There was a night that she stayed with me during that week, and we woke up, and she was gone. She came back in the house, and we were like, "Where did you go?" And she said she went to go meet with Jermaine. At that point, I was so pissed because I'm like, this guy is suffocating you, like he's trying to harm you, and I don't want you to go down this road. She didn't want to hear that.
I think a lot of people remain silent when it comes to intimate partner violence and domestic violence and teen dating violence because they love the person that they're with. There's this thought that this person will change and they will make changes and it will never happen again. The violence will never happen again. And so they hang their hopes on that particular thought, that it did happen. I know it happened, but he said he's going to change.
I didn't want to lose her to me running my mouth. Like, I didn't want her to think, okay, now I told her, and now she's going to go and tell everybody else, and then now I'm just going to go back to the same situation because who else can I trust? So I kept it. What she told me, I kept. Until one day, she was gone.
The race to find Alicia.
As time stretches on, the chances of somebody being found alive are not good.
A family torn apart.
As a mom, that was the most excruciating part. Just because there's just so much raw emotion.
And the chilling trail to Alicia's final moments.
It wasn't a saw. It wasn't an axe. It was a knife.
My mind went completely blank. I started to hyperventilate.
When Alicia's sister, Shaharaz, tells investigators that Jermaine tried to strangle her sister a month before she disappeared, they are alarmed.
With the domestic violence, obviously, the story changed, so we continued our investigation on that.
Police fear that Alicia's intent to break up with Jermaine that weekend may have triggered a violent reaction. When detectives reach out to him, he refuses to come in for further questioning.
So that was very concerning to us, because here we think, okay, you're the boyfriend, you should show some type of concern for her safety, assist the police, so that raised some red flags with us.
Then about 2 weeks into the searches, one of the detectives that was assigned to our case said to me, Shaharaz had told us she went to go and pick up Alicia, and he tried to strangle her. And as a mom, that was the most excruciating part.
I wasn't aware of the whole incident with Alicia and Jermaine. Alicia never brought it up to me. It broke my heart hearing about that situation. I'm automatically thinking that Jermaine is the culprit. Maybe he took her.
With no concrete evidence, police turn to the family in hopes of putting pressure on Jermaine.
The family of a college student who has been missing for more than a week is reaching out to the public for help.
The detectives, they asked me to talk to the media. They wanted to set up for a press conference. We were all scrambling, trying to figure out, how did we get to him? And I said, listen, I don't know what to say. And they were like, just don't specifically talk about Jermaine, but you can talk as if you're talking to him. And that's what I did.
We need for anybody who knows something, and I know there's someone out here who does, to come forward. Please help us bring our loved one, my baby, home.
To try and beg someone not to hurt your child. So yeah, but you do what you have to do as a mother. And I would have done anything for her to be able to come home. Sorry.
People were out trying to find Alicia, but as time stretches on, the chances of somebody being found alive are not good. And in this case, I mean, we were going from days to weeks to months now.
I was just crying. That destroyed me because it made it feel like she was never coming back.
To focus their efforts to find Alicia, investigators search along the route he drove on the night she disappeared.
She's last seen in Bridgeport with Jermaine Richards. And her school is in Willimantic. It's important to understand that in figuring out what happened on the night she disappeared.
On May 17th, a month after Alicia went missing, a search party summons Sergeant Ruddy to a location near Bridgeport.
So we get down there. It's like a cul-de-sac. We walked into the woods, observed what we had, partial human remains.
It's essentially an arm and a leg in a substantial state of decomposition.
And once you realize that these are human bones, of course the question is, well, what happened to the rest of the body?
A DNA test later confirms the victim is Alicia Wiley. While examining her remains, investigators draw a chilling conclusion.
The medical examiner determined that those remains had been disarticulated by an edged instrument. It wasn't a saw, it wasn't an axe, it was a knife. That's a skill set that one who knows human anatomy would have to have. Jermaine Richards completed the course of study prescribed for a licensed practical nurse. Among the things that he needed to know was human anatomy.
The area where the remains were was actually about 1.5 miles from his house.
This has now gone from missing person case to horrendous murder case.
Soon after the discovery, investigators make a difficult call.
They told me that we're sorry to inform you, but it wasn't a body that we found.
My mind went completely blank. I started to hyperventilate.
Not only did he murder her, he threw my baby away like trash.
And I just remember, I just started bawling. I just couldn't take it.
To build a case against Richards, investigators re-examine his alibi for the day Alicia disappeared.
The discovery of Lily's remains exploded his story about taking her back to Willimantic. Why would the defendant drive her all the way to Willimantic only to leave her off 2 blocks from the school?
The added twist to this is that she had texted her friends at college that she was on her way back after breaking up with Jermaine. And that added to the mystery.
And we have no idea who sent texts to Sade Burke. In all likelihood, it was not Lily sending those texts.
On May 17, 2013, police issue a warrant for Jermaine Richards' arrest.
Tonight, police say Jermaine Richards of Bridgeport has surrendered to police.
They say that Richards is charged with murder as well as kidnapping in the first degree.
But District Attorney Joe Corradino must overcome daunting challenges to secure a conviction.
There's no glove, there's no knife, there's no smoking gun, there's no blood stains, there's no DNA. All the things that normally you would find in a murder scene, there is nothing. There was a genuine concern that Jermaine Richards was going to get away with this crime.
In the absence of physical evidence linking Jermaine Richards to the murder of Alicia Wiley, the prosecution zeroes in on a trial strategy.
The prosecution took a completely different tack.
Our focus was on the issue of domestic violence. It was important for the jury to consider what was happening in that relationship.
It's not easy to leave a relationship. It's not easy to get out. When you're in it, you don't truly understand the dynamics. People forget that intimate partner violence is not just physical. It's emotional, it's psychological.
But we all need to understand that the most fatal time for anyone getting out of a domestically abusive relationship is leaving. I didn't teach my girls that. I didn't know.
After presenting their domestic violence-driven case, the prosecution rests, and the jury announces they've reached a verdict.
I remember I was sitting with Karina. We were like holding each other's hands the entire time. We were both super nervous. We didn't know what was going to happen.
And then the foreman said guilty.
It was like a breath of fresh air. It was just thank God the entire time. Like I was just so happy. I prayed so hard, so much. Like that's all I can do was be happy. Like finally.
Jermaine Richards is sentenced to 60 years without the possibility of parole for the murder of Alicia Wiley. In the wake of the trial, Karina sets out on a mission to share her hardship and honor her beloved daughter.
The horrific loss of her daughter didn't paralyze her. It didn't numb her. What it did was it motivated her.
We started a nonprofit organization called Mothers of Victims Equality to bring up awareness about different scenarios of domestic violence, not just on those that are going through it, but also the family members and the community as a whole.
Years later, Shaharez recalls the final moments she spent with her sister, a few weeks before she was killed, and a heated exchange about Alicia's relationship with Jermaine.
We just got into this like huge argument, and she was like, I'm so sick of this. I'm so tired of this. I couldn't understand what was happening inside. We were arguing and it was like, it's not something that we haven't done before. And it was burning. I've never felt like that when I've argued with her. And I was like, I don't feel right letting her go. Like us partying like this. And I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry. And she was like, I'm sorry too. And we hugged. And that was like my last face-to-face with her.
For Sade, she remembers the spirit that radiated through the texts Alicia sent in her final moments.
She wasn't a victim. She was a person that had life. She was someone who was strong. She was someone who was trying to get out of the situation, which is why I always tell women whenever they're dating men is to make sure you love yourself first and foremost.
She was driven. Like she was doing it. She was going for the goal. And for that to just so horrifically be snatched away. It just hurts, you know, it hurts. So.
She would go to a party and she would dance. When she went to the bar that night, that was the last time we seen her.
She's riding into the night with a mystery man on a motorcycle.
We knew we needed a break. Who is this individual?
I know my daughter. She would contact me.
Is she alive somewhere needing to be rescued?
We started to find more what we believed were human remains.
Somebody knows something and you're not telling, and we need to know.
October 12th, 2012. Jacksonville, Florida. For Sherry Prather, life can be summed up with 3 words: family, fun, and Harleys.
My mom, she was definitely a free spirit. She wasn't one for rules. She did have a lot of friends from like a lot of different backgrounds. Mom was very attracted to Harleys. She loved motorcycles, so anytime like she seen one, she wanted to go for a ride. She loved a party and she would dance. She loved to sing karaoke. She could sing really good. She had a beautiful voice, sounded just like Stevie Nicks. She was not just my daughter, she was my best friend.
Norma Ellis is a young single mom when her daughter Sherry is born.
They laid her on my chest. It was just a shock, like our heart became one. And like they just beat in rhythm together. That just stays with me all the time because it was just like a jolt. It was like we just become one.
Norma strives to give Sherry everything she missed in her own upbringing.
I didn't have a real good childhood. We didn't have a loving family. And I wanted her to be raised to know what it felt like to be wanted, big Christmas and stuff. I tried to cram all that in for her. Anything, if she said she wanted it, if I had to work 2 shifts, I was going to get up for work.
Sherry's childhood is filled with love, but she also has to grow up fast.
She was very caring. If I was in bed sick, she'd come in there every 15 or 20 minutes and put a cold rag on my head, and she always took care of me. I didn't have any help but her, and she was young. We had the tightest relationship, and it was my birthday. brought me roses. Yeah, she brought me roses.
Like her mother, Sherry falls in love at a young age, and by her early 20s, she's married with 2 baby girls.
That's her holding one of the kids. The young mother, that's her husband. That was her husband. It didn't last too long.
I think at the time, like when she had us, she was so young, she wasn't ready to be a mom, so she kind of grew up with us.
After 5 years of marriage, the relationship falls apart, and Sherry finds herself a single mom. She moves in with Norma for support.
It was just the 4 of us, all women. We were one. She was close to her girls. She liked the freedom to come and go, and she knew that I was going to be there to take care of the girls.
But after her divorce, despite her mother's support and unwavering love, Sherry hits one rough patch after another.
I've watched my mom go through like a lot of bad relationships where they felt like they could put their hands on her and stuff like that. They tried to control her, which only made her pretty much rebel even more.
Through years of abuse and struggle, Sherry turns to alcohol and drugs to numb the pain.
Her addiction was probably her biggest battle. She battled with that for a very long time.
By the time Sherry is 30 years old, she manages to fight off her demons.
She was clean and sober. She didn't even drink or anything anymore, but she was still a free spirit.
In 2012, after years of sobriety, Sherry is now a 43-year-old mother of 2 adult daughters. Her youngest, Mandy, is 22 and still lives with Sherry and Norma. By now, Sherry has been clean long enough to feel comfortable hanging out with friends at a local bar without drinking. And on October 12th, she makes plans to meet up with some friends at a place called Boots and Bottles.
It's a little hole in the wall, more like bikers and like the older type of crowd.
She said, I am going to walk. I said, get in the car. I would take you rather than you walk because it's a real bad road. And it was dark. It was 10 or 11 o'clock.
So me and Grandma actually took Mom up there. When she went to the bar that night, she was supposed to just hang out. And that was the last time we seen her.
By the following morning, when Sherry hasn't returned home, her mother grows concerned.
I knew that she was missing because she did not call me. I knew something was wrong the minute she didn't come home.
When a day passes with still no word from Sherry, Norma and Mandy decide to act.
So Monday I told Grandma, I just have a feeling like we need to go to the police station. But because of like her background and how old she was, they really didn't want to file a missing persons report. So of course, my grandma being who she is, there was an uproar in there.
And they kept trying to tell me, she's a grown woman, we're not filing. I said, oh yeah, oh yes you are.
Missing person cases, sometimes you hear, you have 24 hours to be reported missing. And that's not really the case. Oftentimes, it's the circumstances surrounding the individual. Is this uncommon for them? Or are there foul play, signs of a struggle, something like that?
With Norma's insistence, the police take the missing persons report. But they are not overly concerned yet and don't immediately begin an investigation.
We don't quite have enough to where you feel confident that something did occur that would cause the missing persons team to react immediately as opposed to not.
But 3 days after Norma last saw Sherry walking into the Boots and Bottles bar, she's convinced otherwise.
You try to go to sleep and wake up in the morning and put your feet on the floor and you think, oh gosh, that was a horrible dream, and you start to walk down the hall and you say, oh no, she's not in there. I know my daughter and I need some help. Somebody's holding her captive or she's laying hurt somewhere. Something is wrong.
A relentless mother drives the investigation forward.
I checked all the tips, pleaded on the internet, please come forward, please come forward.
It was really incredible to see the mother's strength and will to just keep going.
But it's a long wait before investigators can confront their prime suspect.
We were fairly confident that a confession was not going to occur with this individual because he has told so many lies.
He stands up the minute they walk out of the room and he bangs his head on the interview table.
Three days after Sherry Prather was last seen, her mother Norma is still struggling to have Jacksonville police take her daughter's missing persons case seriously.
They kept saying, she's an adult, we can't. I said, I want it filed. I will go downtown to whoever I have to. I know my daughter. She would contact me.
And eventually, Norma's entreaties pay off. On October 15th, detectives start their investigation at the bar where Sherry was last seen.
Boots and Bottles is a small establishment. It's just an old-fashioned place to grab a beer in the neighborhood of Ocean Way. But it was popular at the time.
It's a small little dive bar is how I would describe it. Particularly people that ride motorcycles would kind of hang out there.
Sherry Prather was a regular there. That's what we had heard from people. It was kind of the gathering spot for her and her friends.
Investigators first talked to the bar's owner to see if he noticed anything unusual on the night that Sherry vanished.
We're looking, what firsthand knowledge does he have? What secondhand information does he have from his employees or people that were there? So he did tell our detectives that he knew Sherry Prather was there. She was there with a group of friends, and that's all that he could really provide. He was able to say, hey, these were some other people that may have been here at this time. That gave us a direction to go in.
Investigators also searched the bar itself for any clues.
Detectives searched Boots and Bottles for any type of physical evidence, including video footage, anything that could show Sherry.
But unfortunately, the bar has no surveillance cameras, and detectives can find no other evidence of any value. They know they need to find potential witnesses, so they begin reaching out to the bar patrons mentioned by the owner, and any other regulars they can find who might have been there the night Sherry disappeared.
They said she was there with her friends, and that's when she decides to leave. Little did they know that was going to be the last time that they saw her.
Sherry left in the wee hours of the morning toward closing time. And we did find there were some local gentlemen that openly articulated as a motorcycle club.
They were motorcycle gang members, the outlaws.
And we knew the members of that club didn't even want to speak to the police.
The detectives learned that the biker gang is listed by the FBI as an organized crime ring, linked to illegal activities, including drug trafficking, prostitution, extortion, and money laundering.
So we made contact with those members. Eventually, we knew much of that would be a dead end. We weren't going to get much information from those folks.
Their presence at the location from which Sherry disappeared is worrying. But police find no evidence connecting her and the biker gang. Days pass with no new leads, and the case seems to be hitting a wall. At the same time, word of Sherry's disappearance catches the attention of local news reporters.
At the time, I was a field reporter, and police did not have a lot of information to go on. So certainly, it was a mysterious case. I wanted to talk to Norma. I went to her house and knocked and knocked and knocked, and eventually she came to the door, and you could tell she was disheveled. She doesn't know where her daughter is. Is she alive somewhere needing to be rescued? Obviously, she's going through all of these emotions, and there's a lot of family members that would say, no, we're not able to talk right now. We're too distraught. There's people that would slam the door in my face. Norma came out and did an interview with me.
That was my only child. She was my whole life.
So now she's pleading that someone knows something.
Every night I hear her calling me to unlock the door to let her in, and I can't take it anymore.
I remember she showed a picture of Sherry, and that was the first time we really got to see a picture of this woman who was missing, besides what had been released by police. She had a flyer, and she did everything she could.
If you don't get out and help, your case is not going to get solved. It's just going to be shoved to the bottom. I went out, everybody at the bar that gave me information, I checked all the tips. We pleaded on the internet, please come forward, please come forward. We did a lot of posting on Facebook, just about every day, pleading, any tip. I just want some information.
If there was a 1% chance that Sherry was alive, Norma was going to use that 1% chance as motivation to keep going. And it was really incredible to see the mother's strength and will to just keep going.
It's been 3 weeks since Sherry Prather vanished from a Jacksonville bar called Boots and Bottles. Missing persons detectives are failing to gain traction in the investigation.
Obviously, detectives are going to have to keep some things close to the vest. They were struggling, and they were frustrated too at the time. They were having trouble finding leads. So, it did become a whodunit.
But Sherry's mother, Norma, and her daughter, Mandy, refused to let the investigation wither.
Me and Grandma actually drove around and went into a lot of bad houses and bad areas trying to find her, just to see if they've seen her, if they talked to her.
And told the people at gas stations that looked like dopers, you know, you seen my daughter? I never was afraid.
She's in high crime areas. She's talking to people that could be perceived as dangerous. She's doing everything to find her daughter, and she wasn't going to stop.
We put up posters every morning, please help. There was a lot of witness. Somebody knows something and you're not telling, and we need to know.
I vividly remember begging with her to please stand down and not place herself in a situation where harm could come to her. I spoke to Miss Ellis, reassuring her that we were doing everything we can and that we weren't forgetting her case.
We did advise her numerous times to let the officers and the detectives in our office conduct the investigation, all the while knowing that I would probably be doing the same thing she was doing if I was in her shoes.
"30 days into the investigation, police finally get their first solid lead. On November 12, 2012, Teresa Lennox, a childhood friend of Sherry's daughter Mandy, contacts detectives, claiming to have information.
Can you state your name? My name is Teresa Lennox.
Investigators bring her in for an interview.
When I turned on the news and I saw the missing persons report for Sherry Prather, I broke down. I got really upset. I was crying loudly. My uncle came out of his bedroom. That's my Uncle Jack. Uncle Jack, yeah.
Teresa explains that she has been staying with her uncle for a few weeks while she looks for an apartment. He is a regular at Boots and Bottles.
When Jack came out of his bedroom, he asked me what was going on. And I pointed at the TV, and he said, well, who is that? And I said, well, that's Sherry Prather. I said, that's my, really good friend of mine's mother. And he goes, really? He said, that's the one that they've been putting up pictures of all over town. I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, I might know what happened to her. And he said, well, all I know is that supposedly this biker guy killed her over money and dumped her on Braddock Road. That's what he said. That's all I know. And he left it at that.
Detectives press Teresa for the name of the biker. She insists she knows nothing. She says she hasn't seen her Uncle Jack for several days, and investigators are unable to locate him. Meanwhile, another team from the Missing Persons Unit is deployed to Braddock Road, the place Teresa claims Sherry's body was dumped.
It is in a very rural part of the city of Jacksonville. It's a heavily wooded area. It's not a well-lit area. It's a local road.
The investigative team searches through rough terrain, pulling back branches and combing through tall grass. They find bone fragments, but at first glance, they appear to be from an animal.
There were animal carcasses, and that particular location of the woods is known to be a dump site for hunters. They dump deer, hog, wild hog carcasses, and there's quite a few scavengers out there. It was at that time that we made the decision to contact one of our dog handlers who has a dog that specializes in locating human remains.
The highly trained dog gets to work, scouring the discarded bones spread across the field. Then, he signals his handler that he's found something.
The dog located what they believed were human remains. He immediately contacted the on-call homicide team, which was my team, and we responded to the scene. We started to find more what we believed were human remains scattered throughout the woods. There was a potential body that could be Sherry.
Days after Sherry Prather was last seen, a tip leads detectives investigating her disappearance to a rugged piece of land in Jacksonville, Florida, where they have found human remains.
We blocked off a large section, shut that area down, and then brought in teams of evidence technicians, or crime scene unit detectives, to assist us in literally combing the entire woods, from the roadway all the way into the woods, which took several days. We located some clothing, some shoes, small piece of jewelry. With great assistance from the canine, we were able to recover all human remains.
The Office of the Medical Examiner here in Jacksonville We're able to locate some living x-rays of Sherry Prather and compare them to the deceased remains of Sherry Prather, and those bones did confirm it was in fact her.
We were all actually at my grandma's house, and they called, and they told us over the phone that they had found remains.
I felt relieved that they had found her, but the thought of animals eating her and taking her was the hardest part for me to take. I thought I was going to die. And I thought, this can't be real. This can't be real.
Once they confirmed that it was her, just the thought of it was just pieces, wasn't even like all of her, is I think what truly broke our family.
Homicide detectives take over the case, but they know they face a tough task. Given the condition of Sherry's remains, determining how she died will be difficult.
We decided early on to reach out to an expert, a forensic anthropologist. We knew she was an expert at analyzing bones and determining how they were broken, if they're broken, whether they were shot with a firearm, whether they were stabbed.
The forensic anthropologist gets to work, decoding the secrets Sherry's remains hold.
While that is going on, we're sending detectives to start backtracking. We already know she went missing at Boots and Bottles.
Investigators know Boots and Bottles has no surveillance cameras, but they hope a nearby business might. They go back and canvass the strip mall. They discover that a nearby cell phone store does have a camera, and it points in the direction of the bar's parking lot.
When we watched the video to see if there was anything, it clearly showed Sherry Prather walking out to an individual who was standing by a motorcycle. She gets on that motorcycle, and then they leave the establishment with Sherry on the back as a passenger.
Detectives know they are witnessing Sherry Prather's final moments.
It was mysterious. It's not great video. It's not high quality. It's dark. It would be difficult to identify anyone's facial features from it, but it shows she's riding into the night with a mystery man on a motorcycle leaving a bar.
It's their first look at the person who may be responsible for Sherry's death.
Is this some sort of a motorcycle gang? Is there some bigger criminal activity here? Are we dealing with a serial killer? There's definitely an uneasiness in the neighborhood. And this is not a neighborhood that's immune from crime.
As detectives try to identify the man in the video, they get word from the forensic anthropologist that she reached a conclusion on Sherry's cause of death.
When she found a semicircle beveling in a vertebrae, that absolutely confirmed to us that Sherry Prather was in fact shot.
But detectives have nothing pointing to the identity of her killer.
We knew we needed a break. Who is this individual?
Detectives turn to the public for help, releasing the video of Sherry Prather's final moments to the media. As the video hits the airwaves, tips start pouring in, and one call in particular stands out. It's from a woman named Samantha Johnson, who claims to know the identity of the man seen with Sherry on the video.
We had her come down to homicide.
Today is November 14th, approximately 6:26 p.m. And can you just state your name for me?
Samantha Burleson Johnson.
You saw a news story regarding a missing person, right?
Yes, sir.
And on that news story, there was a video of a man and a woman on a bicycle leaving somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Did you recognize the person on that motorcycle?
Yes, sir.
And who did you recognize that person to be?
Johnny Wayne Johnson.
Surveillance video has revealed Sherry Prather's final moments, riding on the back of an unidentified man's motorcycle. Now, a witness has come forward claiming to know the identity of the biker in the video.
And who did you recognize that person to be?
Johnny Wayne Johnson.
Samantha Johnson is Johnny Wayne's wife. They're still currently married, but not living together. They're separated.
In addition to identifying her estranged husband, Samantha tells investigators that she also has information about what happened to Sherry that night.
Okay, what do you say about the girl that was on the back of the motorcycle?
He took her to somewhere off Trout River Boulevard, Braddock Road, and dropped her off.
And at that point, he shot her?
Yes, sir. He said he didn't have enough time to move the female, so he just dragged her into the woods.
Johnny had a conversation with her as to what occurred that evening, proved that he, in fact, killed Sherry, and more importantly, before her body was ever located. He gave very specific information of to where he placed the body, and she was able to provide that information.
Detectives begin a deep dive into their new prime suspect, and it's eye-opening.
He had built a character of himself with the local community, and they were truly scared of the guy. But we worked with our intelligence unit, which is the unit that oversees and monitors all the various motorcycle gangs in and around the region, and we had no indication that he was a gang member. The guy had told quite a few stories to build up his presence.
Detectives find Johnny Johnson's address and rush to the location, ready for anything. To their surprise, he calmly welcomes them.
He admitted, yeah, he picked her up at the bar, and he took her and dropped her off at a house. We actually got him to show us the house that she was dropped off at.
But detectives are suspicious of Johnny's version of events. And when they interview the owners of the house, they hear a different story.
We actually were able to determine that nobody ever came by their house. They don't know Sherry Prather. They don't know Johnny Wayne Johnson. That simply didn't occur.
Detectives suspect that Johnny Johnson killed Sherry Prather, but his estranged wife's statement isn't enough to arrest him. They need solid proof.
In a case where you have very little physical evidence, there's no DNA, there's no murder weapon, there's not an intact body, there's no eyewitnesses, we needed more evidence. We asked Sergeant Farhat, his team, to continue to pursue evidence.
That is difficult. Letting them walk out that door, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up when you're like, my God, we know this guy did it. Let's be patient. Time's on our side. We're going to continue and work this case to the very end.
But weeks, then months go by without the homicide team able to find the proof it needs.
Successfully convicting him requires us to prove our case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. So we continue the investigation to the frustration of us all.
Then, Samantha Johnson, also frustrated that her estranged husband is still a free man, agrees to wear a wire to help with the investigation.
It was a detective that was investigating a missing persons case.
Yeah.
Who discovered it off of a tip.
But isn't that the place that you said all this happened?
Like I said, I ain't just.
But what really happened?
It is what it is. Right now, I don't want to really get into it until it's over with, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough.
Samantha is unable to provoke a confession, but she does have another lead to offer the investigators. She tells them she's learned that Johnny had a girlfriend named Jordan Paris, and she's heard through the grapevine that she may have helped him dispose of Sherry's body.
We actually brought her downtown to the homicide office and conducted an interview.
Johnny, who is John Wayne, correct? Johnson. Yeah. Your boy. Yes.
She was not completely forthcoming. She did admit pieces that Johnny went out that night. She knew something happened, but was terrified to tell us.
I'm afraid of what will happen if he knows. I don't. He just kept bringing stories up.
Of what?
And some other girl had gotten smart with someone of power.
Mm-hmm.
And they were either going to take care of it or the girl boyfriend had to take care of it. That was a member of the club.
Take care of us and what?
Beat her.
But investigators continue pressing Jordan for information, confronting her about claims that she helped move Sherry's body.
Obviously, information that was provided that said that you assisted him in moving a body or bodies with your PT Cruiser is inaccurate?
What? No.
Okay, so it is inaccurate.
Yes.
Okay. Your vehicle has never had any human remains in it?
No human remains, no.
We took possession of her car, got a warrant, and we went through every square inch of that car forensically. There was no physical evidence in that car that indicated that Sherry was ever in that vehicle.
Jordan Paris is cleared of any involvement with the disposal of the body, and detectives are no closer to finding the physical evidence they need. Now, they're forced to wonder if their main witness against Johnny, his estranged wife Samantha, is telling them the truth, or if she has ulterior motives for implicating him in a murder.
They were in the process of separating. Was she fabricating these types of statements by him? If she's jealous of the new girlfriend, we knew we needed a break. We needed a witness or witnesses that sure may have been close to the defendant, but had no motive to lie.
The detective said, we've got one shot is all we have, because they could not find the gun. To put this murder charge on him, we have to have more evidence. And I said, I cannot take this anymore.
The break they need eludes the detectives, and for 4 years, there are no new leads. Then, in 2016, a man named Mike Carroll calls police, saying he's been too frightened of Johnny Johnson to say anything, but has finally found the courage to speak up. He tells investigators that on the night of the murder, he received a phone call from Johnny.
It was the wee hours, 4 or 5 in the morning, and Johnny Wayne Johnson told him he messed up and he needed some help cleaning something up. He told him he had dumped Sherry in the woods, that he wanted help finding ways to hide the remains. Of course, Michael Carroll refused.
So that was the critical piece, the final piece.
After 4 years investigating the murder of Sherry Prather, authorities have finally found the witness they need. On November 18, 2016, armed with the account of a man who says he was asked to help dispose of Sherry's body. Investigators bring Johnny Johnson in for a critical round of questioning.
Our goal is simple, and that's to get a confession. So we brought him in to homicide.
Johnny, do you remember a detective talking to you 4 years ago about the girl that was missing from Boots and Bottles?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I took him to where I dropped her off at.
Do you remember her?
Yeah. I've been keeping up with the story in hopes that y'all catch the person who does it.
Now, we were fairly confident that a confession probably was not going to occur with this individual because he has told so many lies, but we still tried.
Not being honest, Johnny, but you got to explain your side of the story.
And I have been. I dropped her off on Trout River.
But you didn't.
I did.
You took her to Braddock Road.
No, I don't know about Braddock Road.
Yes, you do, Johnny. It's right there. It's right there. You've been down it several times.
As the detectives started presenting him with the case and questioning him what occurred, they said, look, we know you're lying.
I done told you.
That's not the whole story.
It is the whole story. That's all I know, and I didn't do it. You can believe what you want to believe. I did not do it. I swear on my father's grave.
It's denials. I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell my girlfriend that. I didn't tell my wife that version. I didn't tell her anything. It was a multitude of denials throughout his interview.
Can I go home?
No, you cannot.
Why is that?
Because I'm charging you with murder.
I didn't do murder.
Well, I'm charging you with it, and we can prove it, Johnny.
No, you cannot, because I didn't do it.
He stands up the minute they walk out of the room, and he bangs his head on the interview table.
Oh, bud.
Detectives call EMTs to check Johnson out. Once he's given the all clear,
You are good to go.
they charge him with murder. As prosecutors prepare to bring Johnny Johnson to trial, his lawyers approach them with a plea offer.
We reached that plea agreement of 20.4 years in prison to second-degree murder, which is what he was charged with. We took that offer to the victim's family, and as you can imagine, the family was very happy to get him to finally acknowledge legally in a courtroom that he was in fact guilty.
I looked at Mandy and she said, Grandma, as old as he is, he got 20 and a half years, and he was supposed to have already been sick. She said, he'll never live to come out of there.
The only thing that I felt was I did feel a little relief knowing that he wasn't out there and that he couldn't do it to anybody else and ruin anybody else's family. But at the same time, it's like you put my family through a lot, and in our minds, like the sentence that he got wasn't enough. I do remember her ambition and her fight. Like she never gave up. It didn't matter, and she's very headstrong. So when she has like something in her head, like she's gonna get to that point, no matter what it takes her.
This one was just a few days before she disappeared because she had just gotten her glasses. We're in the backyard. She never wore glasses before, and she said, "Oh, I'm not going to wear these." I said, "Well, if you want to see." I didn't know this would be the very last picture. She was just sweet, and that's why I miss her, because we did so much together. I didn't want anything to happen to her, and I would give anything if it had happened to me instead of her. I wish that 1,000 times.
She's walking at a quick pace. You can tell that she's comfortable, but nobody behind her. And within minutes, she has vanished into thin air.
I said, "What do you mean they can't find her?"
Her mother, Dawn, left Rochester for Myrtle Beach after Brittany disappeared.
Helicopters, ATVs, horseback.
I saw what it was like to lose a child.
I had to find my daughter, and I wasn't going to stop until I got answers.
April 2009. Brittany Drexel, a 17-year-old high school junior, is living life to the fullest as an outgoing young woman in her hometown of Rochester, New York.
Brittany was just an awesome kid. Very happy, carefree. She was very popular in school. Everybody just loved her.
We met through some mutual friends, started hanging out like normal teenagers. She just loved going and doing things. She wasn't somebody that liked to sit still.
When she was younger, Brittany was very sassy, loved to perform in front of people. She used to sing, and she would put on shows for us in the backyard. She was a great kid.
When Brittany turned 7, the Drexel family welcomes another child, Marissa.
When Marissa came along, she was very excited to have a little sister, and she was like a second mom. She would always help me. She would want to hold her all the time. She would want to feed her and play with her, and she loved being a big sister.
We had that bond where we could just lay and talk about things, or we could have those mother-like-daughter talks with each other, and she was always there when I needed her.
6 years after Marissa was born, Camden came along, and Brittany was a lot older. Like, Camden was her baby. Like, she just adored Camden.
My sister was a social butterfly. She had millions, billions of friends. She was full of energy. She was a spitfire. She was full of, I don't know what word I want to use. She was full of life.
That year, Brittany starts dating her first real boyfriend, a classmate named John Greco.
When we first met him, he had come over to the house because he wanted Brittany to go to prom with him. You know, she was going on 16, and we'd said, sure, bring him over, you know, we'll meet him and stuff. John came from a great family. His parents are super nice, and Brittany adored him.
She had a lot of big dreams and goals. She wanted to move out of Rochester. That was a huge thing.
My sister was into fashion.
Brittany liked making clothes. She had quite a few drawings. She would dye jeans with bleach, and her friends would buy them and stuff, and she also wanted to model. She said, I'm gonna have 6 kids, and my husband's gonna stay home with them, and I'm gonna go to work. And I'm like, yeah, good luck with that.
When Brittany is in her junior year, her parents decide to divorce. It throws her into a tailspin.
She was upset about the divorce going on. It hurt, and of course, as a child, you're going through emotions, and there was a lot of emotion there.
It took a while for Brittany to come down when she was angry, to come down from it. There was a lot going on at that time, and a lot of her schoolwork was falling behind, and So, Brittany had asked about going to Myrtle Beach.
Spring break here, everyone leaves. It's either still really cold, wintry, or it's rain and gloomy out. Myrtle Beach was a party scene, big city for teenagers who want to go out and have fun, or people in their young adulthood.
I told her, I said, Brittany, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, I want you to get caught up in your schoolwork. She's like, well, Mom, I want to go to Myrtle Beach. And I just told her, you're not going. And she goes, why, Mom? I said, you're not going to Myrtle Beach. I said, there's no parental supervision. I said, I don't know the kid you're going with. And I said, something's going to happen to you. And Brittany said, Mom, nothing's going to happen to me. I'll be fine. And I said, well, Brittany, you're not going. So about an hour later, she said, Mom, since it's my spring break, can I go stay at my friend's house? And I told her it was okay for her to stay there.
On the night of April 22nd, 2009, unbeknownst to her family, Brittany and two classmates, Alana and Jennifer, began a 13-hour drive to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
I had called her and I said, Britt, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm going to go to my friend's house. We're going to watch a movie or whatever. And she says, I love you. And I told her, I said, I love you too.
Me and my mom thought she was here, but in reality, she wasn't. I told her I missed her. And then I said, wait, before you hang up, I want to say goodbye, I love you, one more time. It's the last time I heard her voice.
With her family still none the wiser, the girls arrive at the resort town on the morning of April 23rd. But as her sister will later learn, after 2 days at the beach, Brittany's spring break isn't going as planned.
She was texting John. John couldn't go because he was working, so he had to stay back. But John knew the whole time.
On Saturday evening, April 25th, Brittany texts John that she needs a break from the girls she traveled with.
The girls she went down with, I think, were a year or two older than her. And because they're girls, they're young teenage girls, and they were fighting. She told John she felt alienated and alone. She wanted to come back home.
Brittany tells John that she ran into one of her classmates, Peter Brazowitz, and has decided to go visit him at his hotel. Around 9:15 p.m., Brittany abruptly stops texting John. It's unlike her, so he worriedly calls her family.
John said, Brittany's in Myrtle Beach and they can't find her. I said, what do you mean they can't find her? I was livid. I said, I can't believe she went to Myrtle Beach because she had never done that in the past, like lied to me or anything like that. John came to my house. We were calling the kids that were in Myrtle Beach. The girls wouldn't answer their phone. I kept calling Brittany's phone. And it would ring, and it would ring, and then it went directly to voicemail. Every time I called Peter, Peter answered the phone every single time. But he's like, I'm not her babysitter. And at that point, I said, we need to get in touch with Myrtle Beach Police Department.
Dawn calls the Myrtle Beach police to report Brittany is missing. But she doesn't stop there. She decides to drive to South Carolina herself.
My mom said, listen, you're going to go with your dad for a couple days. I have to go. And all of a sudden, I went to go look at my phone. There's a mass text sent out from John Greco. And it's my sister's picture and missing information. And I said, what is this? Then I started crying. I'm shocked. And I'm like, Brittany's missing, I was in a state of shock.
We got everything together. I think we left about maybe 11 the next morning, and it was a long ride. My phone was blowing up with her friends. They're calling me, crying, screaming, where's Brittany? As soon as I would hang up with someone, my phone would ring again. Like, all I knew is I had to find my daughter, and I wasn't going to stop until I got answers.
A mother embarks on a relentless quest.
I said, I'm done with the bull. I said, I want my daughter found.
While the police drill down on one suspect after another.
But I say he didn't, okay? I say he didn't. I didn't.
There wasn't enough to arrest him. And he said, you're smart, you'll figure it out.
It felt like a roller coaster. You're just like, is she ever going to be found?
After learning that her daughter Brittany Drexel is missing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, her mom, Dawn, immediately begins driving there from her home in upstate New York, 800 miles away.
So I get to Myrtle Beach, and I go to the police station.
But officers tell Dawn that with no evidence of a crime, there's little law enforcement can do. When she describes the argument she had with her daughter about spring break, they suggest that could be why Brittany isn't responding to calls and texts.
You've got bits of evidence that's saying she ran away from home, she rebelled against her mama, it's the day before she's supposed to go back, the idea that a young girl has just run away. But it is something that the police consider every time.
My mom knew my sister was not a runaway. No matter how much bad was going on in my sister's life at that point, she knew my sister wouldn't have ran away.
After failing to gain any traction with law enforcement, Dawn decides to take a different approach.
I go straight to the media. I went to Channel 13, and I said, my daughter's missing. I want to get her name and face out there.
Her mother, Dawn, left Rochester for Myrtle Beach after Brittany disappeared.
To feel, that you don't know where your child is. You don't know if they're alive. You don't know if they're hurt. It's horrible.
Figured I'd be able to find her, and I'd have her back in a couple days and we'd just go home. And we just started looking everywhere, like on Ocean Boulevard, and talking to people, seeing if people seen her, showed her picture, and we were putting posters up. So we did that probably for about a good solid week.
As Dawn continues to search, her media efforts catch the attention of the police and spurs them to action. Detectives begin by interviewing the last person Dawn believes saw Brittany on the night she vanished. Her classmate, Peter.
Peter was a little bit snarky, like, don't bother me. And the police were thinking, everybody wants to help. He doesn't want to be bothered. He said, I did know Brittany. I had met Brittany. We had hung out. We had texted back and forth, but I didn't have anything to do with her disappearance.
Peter claims that after Brittany left his hotel, he was hanging out with friends all night. While detectives check out his alibi, they also seek out anyone else known to have been in contact with Brittany in Myrtle Beach, including the girls she drove with from New York.
They went through each and every one of Brittany's friends for the short time that she was here, and they really scoured everything about them, and they were able to rule them out.
Peter's alibi also checks out.
He was able to show that everything that he was telling them was true.
But the investigation into Peter does lead detectives to a major discovery. His hotel, the Blue Water Resort, has surveillance cameras. And they captured images of Brittany on the evening of April 25th. Brittany enters the hotel at 8:33 p.m. And she appears again, exiting, at 8:48 p.m.
As far as we knew, that was the last time that anybody had seen her. You can tell that she's walking at a fairly quick pace with nobody behind her. She's comfortable, but she's determined to get to wherever she is going.
It's just after leaving the hotel that Brittany exchanges her final texts with her boyfriend John at 8:58 p.m., expressing her desire to come home.
Within minutes, she has basically vanished into thin air.
Investigators request Brittany's cell phone records, hoping they might shed light on her whereabouts.
They did a tower dump back from the day that Brittany went missing on all of the cell towers.
The cell phone records arrive a week after Brittany's disappearance. At 11:57 on the night of April 25th, Brittany's phone pings near the North Santee River in McClellanville, a small town 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. That's nearly 3 hours after the surveillance video shows Brittany leaving the Blue Water Hotel.
They started searching in a very heavily wooded area for her. I mean, helicopters, ATVs, horseback. It was overwhelming because it's a forest where they were looking for her. And they told me if she was put out there, she would be probably dead within 6 hours because of the wild boar, the alligators, just all the wild animals. But you have to have hope. You have to have faith.
Everybody was there. There was a lot of people that were looking for her. It was a needle in a haystack.
Police are searching for missing teenager Brittany Drexel in a heavily wooded region of South Carolina. After cell phone data shows her phone pinged in the area. It's 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach, where Brittany had snuck away for spring break.
I was just in shock, and I just wanted my sister to come back home.
I tried so hard just to keep thinking, maybe she's still out there. They searched them and they didn't find anything. After that, I had stayed in Myrtle Beach for a good month and a half.
My mom was in distress. Even though there was searchers there, she just felt like she had to do it. That's her firstborn. That's her baby. She had to find her. At least know what happened.
Hope is strange. I'd like to say in the beginning, it got me through. Because I was convinced Brittany was coming home.
I left at the end of June, and then I went back to Rochester. But I was calling law enforcement every day. I just wanted to find my daughter.
Days, weeks, months, and then years pass, with no answers for Brittany's family and friends.
I felt like nothing was going on in Brittany's case. This went on for years. I mean, you're talking, she went missing in 2009. I can tell you, the ball was dropped here. The police wanted me to go away. And I felt like I had to just keep after them and after them and after them. And I didn't care if I was bugging them. I don't care. You're going to answer to me. I am her mother.
Dawn was desperate for answers. She felt like she wasn't getting cooperation from the police. Imagine trying to put yourself in the position where she's a mom. She's been thrust into a world of not just the justice system, but trying to maneuver. You're dealing with law enforcement. You're dealing with media. And it's a very foreign and frightening place. I put myself more in a role of, let me help her get her story told.
I held on to just a little bit of hope that she was still alive because I always went back to we didn't have anything.
Dawn Drexel wouldn't quit. She drove all of us crazy. She called me every single day since 2011. It didn't matter if it was Christmas. It didn't matter what time of day it was. And I always answered the phone. Some of my friends would say, you have no boundaries with this woman. And I would say, I can't. I saw what it was like to lose a child. I sat there with her, and nobody would help her.
After more than 2 years with no answers, on August 1st, 2011, out of the blue, Myrtle Beach police receive a strange and stunning call from a young woman. The story she tells concerns her father, a man named Ray Moody.
She said, I think my dad had something to do with Brittany Drexel's disappearance. Mr. Moody, his main girlfriend was Angel, and there was a time that Angel called over there one night and said that Ray was going to get all of them locked up because of what he had done to that girl.
So you guys were dating at the time?
Yes.
Myrtle Beach police brought Angel in and talked with her about that after the kids had called. And the substance of that conversation was, Ray didn't have anything to do with that. I'm so sick and tired of people blaming Ray for everything that happens.
Because if you're trying to accuse him of anything, then I'm not going to be involved in it. Because I say he didn't, okay? I say you did not. I'm not accusing him. I'm not. Yeah, you are.
Despite Angel's denials, police take a deeper look at Ray Moody.
They were able to get a search warrant at Sunset Lodge, which is hotel/long-term rental. Raymond was staying at that area when Brittany had gone missing.
SLED crime scene technicians, with help from Myrtle Beach Police and the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office, searched an apartment at the Sunset Lodge south of Georgetown today.
They were looking for anything that would tie Ray to Brittany Drexel. They went out and talked with Ray at his cabinet shop. And they told him they were searching for Brittany Drexel. And he said, you're smart, you'll figure it out.
After years with no leads, Ray Moody is a suspect in the disappearance of Brittany Drexel. Detectives are questioning him after his daughter reported her suspicions about him to the police.
That investigation, that part of it, the search warrant, yielded nothing fruitful. There wasn't enough to arrest him.
Once again, the case goes cold. It's now been 7 years since Brittany vanished on a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach.
I can tell you it felt like a roller coaster ride. That's what it felt like. You know, ups and downs. They would get tips and then it'd be like, oh, you know, maybe she's getting located or whatever the case may be. And then then there was false hope. And then that really kills you inside, you know, because they're like, you're just like, is she ever going to be found?
The 4th or 5th year into her disappearance, I knew she wasn't coming back. I'm like, I know she's gone.
It's a strange feeling to have to switch, looking for, somebody physically here, and now we're just looking for, what's left. And that, I think, was the worst thing I've ever gone through, emotionally, the worst thing I've ever felt.
Law enforcement would call me and I would talk to them, and this went on for years.
I can't tell you how many hours just on the internet doing research. I obsessed over watching the video of Brittany walking in and out of the hotel. I would slow it down to see if there was anything that I could pick up on. I would speed it up. I watched at all different angles. I couldn't watch it enough because I always...
Well, don't you want to know information about the little girl that went missing?
The informant is an inmate named Taquan Brown, serving a 25-year prison term for manslaughter. He claims that he witnessed a man named Timothy Deshawn Taylor rape and kill Brittany.
He tells the story that Brittany Drexel had been kidnapped in Myrtle Beach, was brought to a house near McClellanville, and she had been raped and tortured and all sort of terrible stuff. And he was over there and saw all of this stuff. And she had ran out the back door, and they had called her and brought her back in and killed her.
So I was just sitting there sobbing, and I couldn't even talk. I couldn't do it. The FBI told me she tried to escape, and she ran out. They went to go get her, brought her back, and then they ended up shooting her. And then they rolled her up in a blanket or a rug and then threw her in an alligator pit. And I walked out of there and I'm like, oh my God. We always had kept hope alive that maybe Brittany was still out there. And that really messed me up, big time. You know, having to picture that in your mind is just crazy. You know, to think that someone would do that with my daughter.
Agents furiously work to confirm the details provided by the informant.
Now, what really corroborated his story was Brittany's cell phone had pinged in an area in the direction of McClellanville.
Even though that's where the inmate claims Brittany was murdered, investigators know their previous searches in that area were big news stories, and that confidential informants will often say anything in hopes of getting a reduced sentence.
Look, CIs will lie, and I don't use CIs unless I can back up what they're saying.
Timothy Deshawn Taylor is already in jail on separate robbery charges. Authorities work to keep him behind bars, while they look for any information that might support the confidential informant's claim. But Dawn believes the awful story could be true.
Dawn did not allow herself any time to mourn. She quickly shifted from, I don't know what happened to my daughter, to where's her body? I want my daughter brought home.
I said, I'm done. I said, I'm done with the bullshit. I said, I want my daughter found. So I don't have to wonder where she is anymore.
Seven years after Brittany Drexel disappeared in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, investigators are looking into a stunning claim by a jailhouse informant that he witnessed a man named Timothy Deshawn Taylor murder her.
all of a sudden the investigation and the media attention, all of us shift to what the investigators tell us. Listen, if the FBI is up there saying, we got a suspect, we believe that this is what happened, you know, Taylor is under investigation, being charged with armed robbery. And I had the opportunity to confront Taylor about his involvement in this case. Did you do this? And he said, no, I did not.
In August 2016, the Taylor family launches a media offensive, releasing a statement maintaining his innocence. They claim the informant lied to the FBI in a desperate attempt to cut a deal for early parole.
That informant said that Brittany Drexel was buried at a plot in Berkeley County, which is west of Charleston. Investigators went down there, and once they start digging, that informant calls in, and he says, look, she was fed to alligators. She was not buried. Brown later came in and said, all of that was untrue. I lied. So none of that went anywhere, but there were many more like that, false leads.
Police eventually cleared Timothy Deshawn Taylor of any involvement in Brittany's disappearance. It's another emotionally draining twist for her family and friends.
And by that point, I was so frustrated. I didn't really trust anybody. So after that, I was on the phone with the FBI every week. I mean, they would keep in contact with me, let me know what was going on.
The FBI agents, since 2016 on, were determined to find out what happened and bring my mom that justice that she was grieving and asking for, and the justice that obviously all of us wanted.
I had a meeting with the FBI and some of the law enforcement that was involved in Brittany's case. I just felt like Brittany's never going to be found. This is ridiculous. After that, I felt like nothing was going on in Brittany's case.
Years pass with an investigation that seems to be stalled. Then, in May 2022, 13 years since Brittany was last seen, once again, there's a phone call out of the blue. And once again, it offers hope.
On a Friday night, I get a call from a defense attorney, Scott Bellamy. He said, well, I've got somebody that's wanting to give you some information. He'll give the information to you, but he won't give it to the police. And I said, well, who is it? And he said, Ray Moody.
It's the same man investigators looked at earlier in the case, when his daughter reported that he may have been involved. Police were unable then to connect him to Brittany's disappearance. Now, his lawyer claims Moody has a story to tell, but he'll only tell it to state authorities and not the FBI.
He wants to stay in the state system. He does not want to go in the federal system because he knows he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he wants to be closer to family members. And if you go in the federal prison, you may be in West Virginia, you may be in California.
Where are y'all from? Alabama. Yeah, that's right. I thought, yeah.
Ray Moody sits down with state investigators and begins laying out the details of what he says happened on the night of April 25th, 2009.
Ray said that in 2009, he and Angel had come to Myrtle Beach. They were riding down the boulevard. He said, so a young lady came out of a hotel, and he said that he and Angel were smoking pot, and Ray asked Brittany, do you want some of this pot? And she said, yeah. Ray said that Brittany got in the back seat. They went where he and Angel had been camping at the pole yards, and they were just going to hang out there for a while.
We're just having a good time, smoking some pot and stuff, you know. Angel left. And while she was gone, I changed the whole subject was going on.
Can you describe the events that happened when Angel leaves? So Angel's obviously not involved. Can you talk us through that?
I made her take her clothes off.
Yeah.
And she was pretty cooperative.
Yeah, she was.
But it was against her will.
It was, you know. Did she say anything to you specifically or at that time?
She said she was going to, she'd tell Angel on me.
And did you start to have sex with her, or did something happen to stop that?
To stop me from having sex?
Yes.
No, I did. I
did.
I raped her.
And he said, she scratched me. I hit her. All of that was over. And he said, then I killed her. He said, I strangled her to death. Ray Moody never showed any remorse. Was a very disturbed individual at a deep level. Angel came back and said, where is Brittany? And he said, you don't see her, do you? And she said, no. He said, well, don't ever ask about her again. The next morning before daybreak, he got up and he said, I dug the hole, buried her body.
Picked her right up and walked out, probably about 150 feet away. More towards the landing, out where they had a like grove of trees and stuff growing, and put her underneath the tree.
So we were like, will you take us to her body? Yeah, I'll take you where she's buried. And they put him on a four-wheeler and drove him through. He said, I haven't been here in 13 years. But that's the place.
A search of the area begins on May 11th, 2022.
So once they start digging, there was bones, there was a nose ring, and there was one contact lens. The next day, they had her as Brittany by her dental records, and then within 2 days, they had DNA that said that is in fact Brittany Drexel.
Brittany Drexel's family has spent 13 years desperately searching for answers in her disappearance. And now, with a suspect in custody, they finally have them. But their worst fears have been realized.
I was so mad because Raymond Moody had been person of interest back in 2011. He's a level 3 sex offender. He shouldn't even be in Myrtle Beach with all the kids and stuff here. Okay? You've got to be kidding me.
The most frustrating part of this whole investigation for me is I learned that the day after Brittany Drexel went missing, they pulled Raymond Moody over. When you get a speeding ticket, it came up that he was a registered sex offender. He has scratches on his face. There's a missing girl in town. It doesn't take a genius to say, hey, wait a second. Maybe we should take this guy in. Maybe we should look at him. Nobody batted an eye. She was the perfect target. You know, we hear from him, oh, she wanted to party. She wanted to get in the car and smoke weed. From the friends and family that I've spoken to, Brittany Drexel could not stand the smell of marijuana. She would not smoke marijuana. She would not even date a guy who smoked marijuana. And if Raymond Moody said that he lured her to the car with marijuana, Raymond Moody's lying. It's incomprehensible to me that this guy got away with what he got away with.
I will accept your plea to murder, criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, and to kidnapping.
October 19th, 2022, Raymond Moody pleads guilty to murder, rape, and kidnapping. He is sentenced to life in prison with an additional 2 consecutive terms of 30 years. His girlfriend, Angel, is not charged with any crime.
The driving force to keep this case hot was Dawn Drexel. She was hitting a lot of the same obstacles the police were, but she constantly came back into town, constantly looking, constantly calling. And even though it had to be excruciating, this is something that she has had to endure for 13 years to make sure that she got answers. And as terrible as those answers are, she stuck it out and she got them. And I don't think it would have been possible but for her persistence. She didn't allow anybody to forget about Brittany.
Dawn is a complete icon to me because I don't know how mentally, health-wise, I could have handled it.
That strength from me, I think I felt like I had to find her. But it was like a mission.
Until we reunite with my sister, Brittany, we will feel we got the answers we wanted, but it will never fill that missing piece in our family. She's still gone.
Brittany was just a beautiful person, and she would do anything for anyone.
About a month before everything happened, it was my birthday party. We all went to dinner with my parents, and we just had an absolute blast. Brittany was laughing and having fun. She ordered this obnoxious steak, and Brittany was 110 pounds soaking wet. So my dad was kind of looking at her like, "Are you sure, kid?" and was really eyeing her, and she's like, "Yeah, and I want a grasshopper milkshake too." It's the personality, her love of life, her infectious attitude, her smile, her laugh, her goofiness. There's nothing I don't miss.
My sister was very kind and caring. She would never hurt us all. And that's something that we're missing from the world now. And this world is such full of hate that I hope one day it can be peaceful for all of us.
Sometimes I'll go back and look at video of her when she was younger. And I do look at her pictures a lot, but, her memory will always be in my heart, I'll always remember the good times I had with her.